and steps up and throws to the end zone, and Dixon is in. Touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Here's Gordon again. Jump cut in the hole. Busts it to the outside. And Gordon diving for the end zone. Touchdown, Oklahoma State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Now the throw across the middle. That was caught. And on a broken tackle, J.P. Richardson. Touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
And here's Green. He's going to keep it. And Green breaks loose. Garrett Green across midfield and forced out of bounds at about the 25 by D. Winters.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Lance Leipold's group with the 14-zip lead on Matt Campbell's Iowa State team. And Jalen Noles out to the races. Down the sideline. Noel tripped up inside the 5.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
R.J. Harvey direct snap. He keeps it. And now UCF has a touchdown to start the ball game.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, we've been waiting for it, and we now have some evidence. We have not a lot of games, but there were a couple of, one that was a shocker in a way, and then one that almost was, but SMU was able to survive in their game against Nevada up in Reno. Good afternoon, new week, the first full week of the college football season. David Smoak with both Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak on the set. The rambling wreck of Georgia Tech. Brent Pry, what he's done. Haynes King, what he's done. And a stat about Haynes King in just a minute. And former Baylor commit Zach Pyron scored a touchdown in that game. A lot to get to, and we'll start, Craig and Paul, with the game in Dublin, Ireland.
Well, for the tragic ending for my people, but
hey,
it was,
college football's back, Paul.
Yeah, it's great.
Aren't you so excited? It's so great.
Yeah, start 0-1. Way to go. And then the amount of trash talk that Florida State's going to get just because our fans have been out there in the world just pooping on everything. So it comes back to you. I understand that. What I don't understand is people who like fans of not that are that don't have the same kind of pedigree, chalk and trash. But
oh, you can't do that.
I can. I absolutely can.
No, I've learned how to get away from being able to go, yeah, but we have 5 national titles.
Yeah, but I do think that a lot of them
they earned a lot of the retribution and all the.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
They earned a lot of that. I think though that some of the fans like taking a victory lap need to look in their own backyard though.
All right, welcome to college football, Paul.
Yeah,
that's like the whole thing, man.
But
but
yeah, no, I get it. I just think there should be some decorum.
Yeah.
But no, Georgia Tech is a tough team. They were playing a lot better. And the Dublin games are always not exactly how you'd think they'd go, which is good for the underdog. And why Vegas thought that they were 11-point dogs, I don't know, especially given the scenario. But Florida State's defensive line, not nearly as good as advertised yet, really got pushed around. And DJU is very bland.
I thought that's the part, Craig, that really kind of surprised me is the DJU. To me, I thought I would see a little bit more athleticism, which obviously I have not watched enough of him. He looked very much as if he was sometimes running in mud.
DJU looked like what a lot of people said DJU was probably going to look like for Florida State. For those who weren't over the moon about that addition and not reacting like it was one of the colossal, massive gets of the offseason, I thought it was a good pickup for Florida State given their circumstances and losing Jordan Travis. And Won't pretend to act like I didn't think DJU was going to and will still be pretty good for Florida State. But I do think it was either the first time a lot of people had watched him or maybe just the bubble of the offseason and how everything that happens is perfect. It's just getting bursts because, yeah, he was a guy who caught a lot of flack on Saturday. That's for certain. No matter where you were looking, he was not great and had some moments that were pretty, some big fourth down conversions there late in the game, but not, I think, what you were hoping for, and especially not what you were hoping to follow up Jordan Travis with, I think is fair to say if you're a Florida State fan. So, yeah, very rocky start for the Noles. I do think it is a reminder, though, and this probably happens every single year of we all do this to some extent. I think we're all probably guilty of this to some extent. But, hey, they were good last year. They went and got a bunch of people in the portal. They'll be good again. We do that, and we do that a lot. And, the thing with Florida State, I think we had to think of, like, which one of these teams in the top 10 is unlikely to be here at the end. And I was like,
yep,
that's tough. And I was looking at it originally, it's like I thought it was just get out of the top 10. But Florida State was a good candidate for that. And it's like, but, man, they've got this back and they've got this back. And it's like, but they also lost a lot, man. You just don't. Like, maybe if you're Georgia, you do. Maybe if you're Alabama, you do. And even if you're a blue blood, that doesn't mean that you always do, but you replace a lot. The transfer portal's not magic. It's not like an instant upgrade across the board. And so I'm interested to see for a lot of teams out there this weekend of who's been really, really high because of what they went and got the portal or lost a lot and expect they're just going to replace it and get the rude awakening of, like, it's just not that easy. And I think Florida State got that reminder early on. Georgia Tech deserves a ton of credit. Loved watching Haynes King be able to do his thing. Great win for the Yellow Jackets. And, just a brutal way for Florida State to start, and they got their receipts on social media on Saturday. That's for sure. A lot of people ready and rip roaring to go to give them hell, and Kirk Herbstreit was one of those, and a whole lot of others, man. And you can't say that it wasn't deserved in some ways because of the offseason going the way that it did.
Well, again, it wasn't last year's team that was really damn good, and they did get skewered. No matter how it worked out, because of who they were, and then the injury to Jordan Travis. Florida State was 17-1 in season openers as a top 10 team, which also says that 18 times, now 19, they have been ranked in the top 10 in the preseason, which is with those years of Bowden and then in the last year or two as well. The only loss in that time was against Brett Favre and Southern Miss in 1989. Haynes King joins that list of quarterbacks to beat the top 10 ranked Seminoles. The former Longview and Texas A&M quarterback. He didn't do anything spectacular, but he's a gutty kid. Here's one other stat about that game that also led to Florida State being on the field a lot, is that 14 possessions, only 14 possessions in that game, 7 for each team, the fewest in an FBS football game since 2020 at the end of the month of November in 2020.
It was old school, and I expected it to kind of be a little like that. I thought eventually, not just because Florida State, but because Georgia Tech last year, their offense was wide open too. I thought it would open up once they got comfortable and out of this game has started. We're in Ireland and all that. And then it went exactly the way that Brent Key and Georgia Tech wanted it to pretty much the rest of the time, save for about 7 plays that Florida State was able to make on, I think, pure athleticism. And outside of that, I mean, Brent Key coached circles around FSU the other day.
Brent Key, I said Brent Price. So Craig corrected me on that. Thank you very much. Now, one of the things that was new on Friday or Saturday, the 2-minute timeout. Chris Vanini, who's going to join us tomorrow, had a bunch of nuggets over the weekend. He asked coordinator Steve Shaw, why didn't they use 2-minute warning when they decided to have the 2-minute timeout at the end of each half? He said it's not a warning like originally was created in the NFL. Okay, but everyone is going to call it a 2-minute warning. And when they went to the 2-minute timeout, I was ready for it, but it still was very unique and trying to get used to that when it comes to college football. All right, one of the note. Here's a pet peeve that I have, and you guys can hammer me on this or not. We have seen 1 week, a handful of games, and immediately I saw like the projections for the college football playoff and what it meant to Florida State. Yes, losing did not help them at all, But it was almost like that's going to be the new trend. It used to be the 4, and it's going to be wide open. I mean, 98% of the other teams haven't played a game, and I was already seeing the projections for the college football 12 because Florida State was going to be the projected winner of the ACC.
I mean, doesn't mean that they're not going to be still. Like, that's the thing that I was able to kind of relax about this. Now, had this been a year ago, I'd have been like, well, good job, Norvell. Pissed it away already. But, like, this is going to happen. You got to look at it more like an NFL season. If you're a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and they haul off and lose this week, are you like, well, that's it for the whole season? Like, no, you still have a chance to make the playoff. Just got to go win your league. Now it's harder for ACC teams, but again, because they're probably not going to get 2 if it comes down to it with them or the Big Ten and the SEC. But it's way more wide open now than it was.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the saving grace for Florida State, although I don't know if they're going to be good enough in the long run to win out or, only lose one more game and then go win the ACC. I think there's severe doubts about that after what we saw on Saturday. But it's not out of the realm of possibility, and that is now one of the new things about this college football landscape is, you have this 12-team playoff. So my recommendation to you would be to mute those terms if you don't want to see it, because it's only going to be talked about
every day,
more and more and more and more, because more teams are going to be in the race. So you want more teams to have chances. You don't want losses to be the death knell as much as they were. Then it's just going to lead to further speculation for longer into the season for more teams about their opportunity to get one of 12 spots. So if that's something you don't like, then do what I do when it comes to various topics at any given time, where I just get sick of hearing about it and I mute the term and then I go and unmute it a few days later or whatever the case. So if you're getting annoyed by it after like a handful of games have been played, well, buddy, this weekend you're going to be seeing a whole heck of a lot of playoff graphics and things like that when everybody else gets a chance to play. And undoubtedly there is another upset or 2 or 3 or whatever we're in the works for this weekend, which I can't wait for after the little taste test that we got. But yeah, I think that's probably just going to be a new wrinkle to this season, is more playoff talk every week, because more people are involved and losses don't eliminate you like they seemingly would have this Saturday. They wouldn't have eliminated Florida State either in a 14 playoff, but it would have made them basically have to be perfect the rest of the way. And they still kind of have to be that way, no doubt about it, but there's more wiggle room for sure.
Early losses seem to stick with people more than maybe even something in October, November.
They did. Will they still? That's the question. We don't know yet. But this is all, the biggest thing here is not even so much the playoff. It is because there's people that picked Florida State in the playoff. There's people that picked Florida State to win the ACC. But I think just the biggest thing about this was it's the first game. It was a good game. It was an entertaining game. For a first game, you don't know what you're going to get exactly when you've had all this time off, but it was competitive down to the wire and a thriller and a big upset right out of the gates. I don't think you could have asked for much more unless you're an FSU fan, where you've had this entire offseason where, depending on what kind of FSU fan you are, all of you have been bitter about what happened last year, and understandably so. Some, though, have been probably a bit over the line. It almost felt like, especially when SMU was looking like they were going to lose, of is this the karma weekend of everybody who talked trash all offseason was going to lose right out of the gates? So that did feel a little bit like karma for some, not all Noles fans. And I've been there before. You get so excited about the offseason and all this time, and then you finally get to the season and you lose that very first game, and it's just so deflating.
Well, you could still win. You could still go down and go. Now, it's a conference loss. That doesn't help, and who knows where Georgia Tech will be at the end, but you could still win the ACC. You just won't be ranked very high if in fact, the ACC winner has 1 or 2 losses or more. Dustin Poirier, a UFC fighter, a champion at times, was in Waco on Friday. Craig, I sent this to you and thought this was pretty cool because if you're, you like that sport. Dave Aranda loves that sport. He came by. Everyone always has some kind of a special guest speaker. And Dustin Poirier was in town. Baylor, Dave Aranda had his opening press conference today. They play Tarleton on Saturday night.
Yeah, that's cool. Dustin Poirier is a great fighter, and I don't know what led to them other than Dave Aranda's a big MMA and boxing fan. He's got a great respect and appreciation for those sports, those combat sports. And, let's get it kind of clear. I'm not like a diehard UFC fan, but I do like the sport, and I do know and have watched Dustin Poirier many, many times. But I'm not like I like wrestling way more than I like the UFC. I think sometimes I get mistaken for like some big UFC buff. I love it, but it's not like my favorite thing in the world. But
let's put it this way:
yeah.
I never would have heard of Dustin Poirier had I not been watching probably a few of those with you.
Yeah, sometimes people think I'm a bigger fan than I am, but no, I'm a fan, and I'm a fan of Dustin Poirier's, and he's a great fighter and has been in some classics. And I think in terms of a guy preaching to people about hard work and toughness and championships and things like that, yeah, he's one of the best guys out there, and it seemed like it went really well. So don't know what spurred that, but that's cool, and I'm sure it was a real treat for the players and coaches to have a world champion walking through your hallways.
Texas Tech. There are conferences who are doing this. Texas Tech will provide availability reports every Monday, designating players out for the season, out or questionable for the next game. This will be updated about 45 minutes prior to kickoff. What this also does, it seems like to me, one, is it keeps people pretty honest. And number two, it might take coaches having to answer questions throughout the week about a player injured. That doesn't mean if it's a starting quarterback or a player that's a pretty big name that he won't be asked to update where they are. But I like this trend in college football. Texas Tech has joined that trend. Houston, we hear about Colorado a lot. A lot of new players, transfers. Joseph Duarte with this nugget today. 63 newcomers on the University of Houston football program roster with Willie Fritz's first year. Tied with Colorado for the most among the Power 4 schools. 36 transfers, second to Colorado among the Power 4 schools. He has taken that roster and chewed it up, spit it out, and also brought in a new menu.
Yeah, absolutely has, and it's going to be. Yeah, sorry, I'm a little. I got a frog in my throat this week.
It's like you weren't ready for this one.
I was not ready for this one. But no, they absolutely needed a new roster. They need to be better, right? They need to go out and get it. They have a new coach. It's not surprising that you do in this modern age that you have the newest and best, tightest roster that you can. Now it's going to be a work in progress for sure. But people like his quarterback all of a sudden. I mean, you hear people talk about Donovan Smith as a kind of a dark horse for
a lot of the NFL type of gurus or draft type analysts seem like they like him quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see Donovan Smith. I mean, he's definitely got some physical tools that you love. I just feel like last year, big mistakes in big situations, and if he can get over that and not turn the ball over as much and just be a little bit sharper, then I think that could go a really long way and maybe takes Houston a little bit further than they expected to in a year where not a lot is expected of Houston. But, I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to churn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays. So it's not like when we first saw this, it was like, oh, my God, there's 15 players in the transfer portal. It's like rosters flip like crazy, and that's just the way of the world now. So I think with the shape that Houston's roster was in, with Willie Fritz and his staff wanting to come in there and shake things up, it's only natural that, yeah, you had a lot of turnover. So I'm interested to see what that looks like, because it does make any projection you have of Houston a little bit more difficult to really peg, because there's so much new that it's hard to say, well, they were bad last year. Well, it's not even the same team really, and it's not even the same coaching staff. So the whole transitive property doesn't really work that way, and I'm interested to see how quickly Willie Fritz and company can get Houston into a place where they're competitive and winning some games. But, yeah, the Donovan Smith love going around is interesting, and I think that says something about his talents, and maybe that people are underselling them a little bit if some of those transfers hit and he turns out to be as good as advertised. And on the Texas Tech injury report, I mean, that's cool that they're taking that initiative. I don't know how quickly others will follow. I don't know how that'll catch on, at least early on in the season, because I don't know that everybody's quite figured out the advantages and disadvantages to that yet, but I appreciate their transparency, and I'm sure the folks like us all around covering them appreciate that transparency each week when it comes to injuries. Although, like it says, like an hour before game time, you'll really know. So the weekly stuff is the NFL plays games all the time. Like CeeDee Lamb's questionable, and it's like CeeDee Lamb's just not practicing because his ankle's sore. He's going to play on Sunday, and I think it'll probably be similar to that. So I don't know how much you'll glean from it really, and how much gamesmanship there will be, but that could definitely be a trend we see catch on, and I don't think there's anything negative with it really.
Garrett, let's go to the Big 12 and UConn and skip over the quarterback at Western Kentucky for right now. I know this was on Friday. What were your thoughts overall? I'm not sure how much you guys had a chance. The reaction I got from a lot of basketball people, Rob Douster, Jeff Goodman, among others, was, why don't these people making the decisions leave this damn game alone? Now, the UConn thing has been there before. Whether Yormark is trying to scratch that itch again, I don't know. In my opinion, you can't really change the college basketball money you're going to get anytime soon. And I don't know, there's no way that they could bring enough money in as far as TV for now. What was the overall reaction, Craig and Paul, from this story that came in Friday afternoon?
Well, initially my thought is, and thinking about it over the weekend, I really hate the timing of it. Like, football season just got here, and what's the story right as they're about to kick off the first games? It's like, oh, let's revisit some more Big 12 and realignment. And you know what? For the realignment junkies, like, hey, it's like, man, give it to me 24/7, 7 days a week, any time of year.
Yep.
And so you got a little dose and got a little injection, and I thought it was interesting. Like, it perked me up, like, okay. But then I've thought about it more this week, and I'm just like, the timing sucks, man. Like, you've got all these great teams, these great players, this great offseason, and we're starting the football season, and we're going back to the realignment with UConn story right as this all gets underway. Like, we couldn't have done this a month ago. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
we couldn't have done this like 2 months ago.
I noticed the story, but I yawned. It is nothing against UConn. It's just like, not now.
Yeah, I
feel the same way.
I didn't like the timing of it with the very first weekend of football, and now we're revisiting all of this. So beyond that, though, just the timing piece, maybe that's just the only time you could do this, I suppose. But beyond that, I'm a college football guy, first and foremost, so I want the Big 12 to be as competitive as they possibly can be in football. And so the addition of UConn does absolutely nothing for me. And I saw a lot of, well, this will make them invest more, and this will, like, rising boats, like they'll go get in the Big 12 where they care more about football, and that'll force UConn to improve. And they're running the 2000s and all of that. Like, they haven't been around for 30 years. It's not a program that's been around for a long time, and they did have a streak of success in the 2000s, but I don't know, man. From a football point of view, I can't get excited about it. From a basketball point of view, obviously it would be an awesome move for the Big 12 as a conference to be able to pair them with Arizona and Kansas and Baylor and everybody else, Houston. So, from that standpoint, I get it. But like you, are we guaranteed that we know that the decoupling is going to occur with basketball, or is this just a pipe dream by Yormark, who very clearly has had UConn at the top of his wish list of to-dos since he arrived?
Over a year ago.
Oh, yeah. This is multiple visits with the UConn membership now that we've had with Brett Yormark. So it's clearly something he wants and he is adamant about. But is he going to be here in 10 years, 5 years? So, do you add UConn for this vision of his when he's not even around? So I think the presidents have to be smart and be very much forward-looking. But you've got to do what you got to do to increase the brand. And so if this does that, then all power to you. But from a football standpoint, just overall, I don't love it.
Last time that this got to be a little bit hot and heavy, I was told by somebody very much up the pipeline of the Big 12 and among the schools in the Big 12 that he was going to lose all or at least some of the momentum he had gained by adding the 4 Pac-12 schools because there were so many people that would have been against this. And I'm not so sure they still aren't. So this is interesting. And I'm not so sure now that this wasn't UConn who may have said, hey, can we talk about this again? Read a story, and I believe it might have come from Wetzel, and he's going to join us at 3:40, that it was UConn and their alums that want to be a part of a Power 4. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
And that they're willing, if doing that means that it might change a little bit about what they are, the tradition of being a part of the Big East.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing from UConn's standpoint, it's very clear. They don't want to be left out. It's that simple.
Like SMU did by joining the ACC.
I mean, it's very simple from their viewpoint of we don't want to be left out. We don't want to be playing non-power basketball. We don't want to be out in the cold with a bunch of teams we feel like we are better than as a program, as an institution. So we need to get money going. We need to step our game up. We need to go get into a power conference and ensure our survival. That's the UConn way of thinking. And I saw your Rob Douster tweet. You're talking about like, it was such an old man thing. It was like, and I get it, but like, can we not preserve tradition? It's like, read your replies, because the replies say very clearly why UConn fans want this. It's not that they want to leave the Big East because, like, screw the Big East. It's because they know that the future that they want is not being a basketball school in the Big East. It's having a good football program. It's being a part of the mix of the playoff if you can somehow reach that. But you can only reach that if you get into a Big 12.
Right.
And so from their standpoint, it makes 100% sense why you would want to do that. From the Big 12, I think it makes less than 100% sense.
Pete Thamel had this just now. The Big 12 presidents, ADs met about UConn today. No vote was taken on admitting them. That was expected that they wouldn't vote. The call was informational in nature, discussion-focused. It was led by the Big 12's outside consultant, walked them through UConn's media and market value.
You know, again, for basketball, it's great, but I agree with Craig. Like, even 7 years, what's going to happen to UConn football in the next 7 years that hasn't happened in the previous 100 of it?
Yeah.
That's going to make it to like, oh, hey, glad we bought low on UConn football.
That was the one catch, though, from Friday, that if you had a catch where you're like, okay, I get, was that football wouldn't join right away, is that it would be the next television contract. So you'd get your fill and like, look, you wouldn't get basketball out there for a couple of years, but you'd get like a couple of years of basketball before the football, before the contract would roll back up, and you'd have to probably have football join at that point. That would be your agreement most likely. So yeah, I saw a lot of that. Well, we'll just invest, or this will, like I said earlier, we'll be a part of this conference, and that will force us to have to invest. It's like, I don't think that it works like that. You just join a conference and your football program improves. So if you were to do that, the stunted, like everybody joins in a couple of years and then football proves their worth, that makes some sense. But that also just seems like exactly. And where's the Big 12 in 7 years? Where are they when the contract rolls back around? I mean, who knows who's even still in the league at that point? All
right. UConn, by the way, did become not the first school to put a logo on the field, but the first school to put a logo of their collective, their NIL collective on the field today. That came out of, or over the weekend, that came from Brett McMurphy today on his Twitter feed.
And another note from, I think Ralph Russo mentioned that, the Gonzaga pursuit, how the Big 12 was like, no, we don't want to do that. Yormark wanted that, and the Big 12 officials or presidents were like, no, we're not interested in that. So it's going to be very curious to see how interested they are in UConn. And it does, like you put it that way, of maybe this is UConn pushing the buttons, and it could very well be that. I mean, if they're up there presenting and doing all that. But regardless, I don't like the timing, but I get the vision. Although the vision, I don't think, is just an absolute 100% guarantee by any means.
We'll get to Michigan and the infractions and the notice and all of that as a full segment, along with a note or two about all the quarterbacks in the Big 12. Couple of quarterback notes. TJ Finley, who beat Baylor last year to open up the season at Texas State. He's at Texas State. He's been at LSU, Auburn, Texas State, and now Western Kentucky. And, of course, they open up against Alabama coming up this weekend. And speaking of quarterbacks, Kalani Sitake will go back to, has said he will not reveal who starts a quarterback against Southern Illinois until the quarterback runs out on the field Saturday night, whether it's Gary Bohannon or Retzlaff.
Well, I mean, that's only a secret for one play. Garrett, TJ Finley didn't take snaps at LSU, did he?
Yeah, he did.
He did?
Yeah, he played a little bit. He just didn't. He wasn't that good.
Yeah. Okay. So he will have played quarterback now at 4 different actual in games, 4 different places.
I wonder how many others have done that. I bet there's more. There's probably a handful. It's not a lot, but I bet there's a handful.
Probably a handful at this point, and there'll probably be a bunch of people
done 3.
joining him in the next 5 to 10 years. I'd say that room gets a lot more crowded of guys that have done that. But, so did you mention where he went? I thought you mentioned Texas State, but Western Kentucky, right? Did you mention that?
No, they opened up against Alabama.
I didn't hear you say that. But
the Hilltoppers, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Western Kentucky for TJ Finley, just making sure there. But, good for him. 4th time's a charm, baby. I mean, I guess he had some moments like last year against Baylor. I mean, he was great to start off the season, and they had a really good year. I know, obviously, things changed in San Marcos and all that, but good luck to him as far as the BYU thing goes. That's very interesting how long this quarterback battle's drug out between Drake Retzlaff and Gary Bohannon, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not, quite honestly. I don't know if that's because they're both pushing each other and they're just both playing so well that you can't make a decision, or if nobody's emerging. And so I guess we'll find that in week number 1. But I'm not surprised to hear Gary Bohannon's pushing for the starting job. I mean, he's a very hardworking guy, very smart, and he's talented. So I don't think Jake Retzlaff showed anything last year where you're like, oh, yeah, he's the man here. So that's a little surprising it's still dragging on at this point. I don't know what that means if you're a BYU fan. You got to be a little bit nervous.
Yeah. By the way, welcome to the 4 schools, JT Daniels.
Yeah.
USC, Georgia, West Virginia, and Rice.
Yep. Yeah, I was not happy about that.
Somebody put that up in the chat room.
I was not happy about that last year doing stuff for the Earl Campbell Award, and it just bothered me that it's a Texas-based award, so you're going to have guys who are playing for Rice who are from California originally. And look, hey, you chose to come to Houston, Texas to play your college football. Like, you get to be a part of the award as a result of that, the Texas tie-in. But it did bother me a little bit when JT Daniels has no tie to the state of Texas other than Rice happened to be the school that he's going to end his career with. You know what I mean? Like, It was just like, I've been everywhere else.
Would he be eligible this year?
He's not playing.
No.
So
would he be eligible if he was at Rice this year?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, yeah, you just have to play at a Texas school.
Yeah.
That's my whole point is that he ended up there, but there was no real tie-in or anything. So it just felt a little emptier compared to guys who were from here or had been playing here for a couple of years. But, yeah, he was just a Rena guy. So, yeah, I didn't really love that, but that's where we are. And so there's going to be more and more examples of that 4-quarterback club than just those two.
Paul, you okay? You seem like you haven't paid a damn attention to anything we said most of this opening segment.
I noticed something on the thing that I had not finished yet because I was doing other things, so I was finishing it. So we'd have it for the show today.
What is that?
Our pick 'em pool.
Oh, you don't have that.
I had it set up like functionally, but not. I wanted the games picked before I sent the link out. So
yeah, that would help.
Yeah, so it was.
Yeah,
it was functional.
And
like,
by
as
the
far
way,
as,
Texas Beef House and $100 gift cards to the winner each week. Thank you to Kim Coulter who did this for us last year.
And I'm going to get a couple other things from other sponsors to kind of throw in like week by week, kind of like a special bonus prize as well.
When are you going to have that?
This week. I mean, like,
this week
they'll have them this week.
No,
yeah.
When can we predict the games?
Oh, we predict the games in about like. When we get to the commercial break, I'm going to ask you guys about your opinion on the last game I need to pick.
Okay,
but there's going to be 10 games a week.
All right. By the way, Casey Thompson, 4th school. There's another one.
Yeah, it's going to be a growing list in the next 5 to 10 years. There's going to be a lot of guys joining that list, I would imagine. But, yeah, that's all the usual suspects. It feels like we've been talking about for about 10 years now at this point. And I guess Alan Bowman not quite there, almost. Had he decided to transfer one more time, he could have been a part of that. So, yeah, there's some 3-school guys as well. I imagine that list is probably a bit longer. But
yeah, there's probably 2 or 3 other quarterbacks that are maybe more the top of mind. We just
Gary Bohannon's been on 3 rosters.
Yeah, but Baylor, USF, and now with BYU. Okay, this is the first full weekend of college football. There's a lot to get to. We'll have loaded up every day with a lot of guests today with so much coming off that opening weekend. And a lot of guests. We have Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports. He and Ross Dellinger and Pat Forty do a podcast every single week, 3 times a week. He'll join us here with a lot of different topics to get to in the very next segment. All right, when we come back, you want to close out the segment? Anything else? You guys good?
SMU got really lucky.
Yeah.
SMU got really fortunate.
RJ Maryland's going to join us tomorrow on the show, the wide receiver who caught what was the game-winning pass. You're right.
Yeah, that was a near scare for them, and he had the big catch there at the end, as you mentioned, and just college kids, man. You've got a game for Nevada where you're leading, and you've got the end in sight, and special teams blunder, or no, excuse me, not special teams, but the safety.
Yeah, the muff punt safety, or what it was. Was that what it was?
No, I'm talking about the handoff where you got stuffed on. On your own 1-yard line, and I think it might have been the muff punt that led to that. Yeah, that's
the
what
muff
you're talking
punt
about.
Was recovered in the end zone.
Yeah, I was talking about the actual play that he they got caught in the end zone. But yeah, you're right. That's what led to it, and that whole sequence is just like college football, man. Yeah. Like that's what happens. That's the type of stuff you don't see in the NFL hardly, if ever, because they don't make those kinds of mistakes. But that's what makes college football the game that it is. It's like an 18-year-old having to, just do his special teams duty, and it turns into this SMU comeback.
Would have been a disastrous start for
But
them.
it would have been because Nevada wasn't very. It's not been very good.
20-something.
Yeah.
The
No, that's what I'm talking about with Florida State's
Yeah.
talking all this offseason. Had SMU gone and started the season, all this
Same
ACC, and lost their very first game, I mean, that would have been atrocious for them.
It would have been the largest upset of an FBS game since Texas State was in Waco last year when they beat Baylor when they were like 28 or 27.5 point underdogs. So Paul will have the pick 'em. We'll get that to you a little bit later in the show. Dan Wetzel, Colt Barber is in studio today. He was in town for the Baylor press conference to open up the week. Phil Bennett, every Monday at 5, he'll join us. Paul's Top 5. Please click the like and subscribe button if you haven't yet as 365 Sports continues to grow. Back in a moment, 365 Sports with Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak, Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie in the studio. Emery is already working on what will be 365 Sports tonight at 10:30, and I said Colt Barber will join us in about an hour. Back in a moment. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Learned a lot about testosterone over the years, and obviously testosterone is something that could also create problems, especially with what I went through when it comes to prostate cancer. So I've got to be careful about that. It can actually feed the animal or the beast or the evil. But if you are a man in your upper 30s, lower 40s, and you're starting to get sluggish, your focus isn't very good, even your sleep habits, you're active and have a pretty good diet, but you got a little belly fat that's all of a sudden kind of maybe occurred, it could be simple. Your testosterone level is dropping. Dr. Kent Petty can help you out. How? Contact him, PettyClinicLowT.com. They'll set you up to get your blood work, take care of that for you, get the results, and if your testosterone level is too low or maybe even dramatically low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone level so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland at Allen Samuels in Waco. Choose between 2 or 3 rows and save $12,000 or take advantage of 0% financing. Looking for something smaller? Drive home a 2024 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 and save $9,760 or take 0% financing and get $3,000. Don't miss out during the Make This the Summer of Jeep event at Allen Samuels in Waco, where we deliver your next adventure. See dealer for details.
Come by, let's be friends.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
This is 360 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports College Football Inquirer podcast 3 times a week with Ross Dellinger, Pat Forty, and of course a pretty regular guest with us, and we're thrilled to always have him when he can join us on 365 Sports. Dan, not a lot of games, but my goodness, we saw the one in Ireland. Your thoughts about what Georgia Tech did, the win for that program, and also not the best start for a team that's been squawking.
No, I think there was a lot of enjoyment around the ACC at that result. Florida State and to take it to Central Texas, they're sort of your Texas of the last few years, and everyone enjoys when Texas loses if you're the agitator in a league, trying to get out of a league, trying to cause instability in a league. Florida State is all that, and then to watch Georgia Tech beat them, I'm sure was a small measure of enjoyment for much of the ACC, and that's how it's going to be Florida State and Clemson are trying to sue the ACC or in litigation. They got a long way to go. I think, that was not a great performance. I did really like what Georgia Tech did. Brent Key, offensive line coach, and just the whole culture of the place is offensive line. I think someone said they have 15 offensive linemen on their roster, or in their, they just rotate them in. It is about blocking. Brute force reminds me a little of those old Stanford teams under Harbaugh and David Shaw. It's just physical, and they grind the clock down, shorten the game, and that's a huge win, and I think a huge statement and kind of a marketing opportunity for Georgia Tech. Everyone was watching, and they told everyone what they're about.
Dan, when it comes to what you saw from FSU, is this time to hit the alarm bells because they were just very average the other day?
I think, you got DJU as your QB. How good is he? He still seemed to be struggling throwing it downfield. It's one game. You're in Ireland. They almost won. So I think you go either way with that. Are we ever good enough at quarterback to win this league? It's a different playoff now. Last year, Florida State won every game and got left out. This year, they can lose this one and still win the ACC, and they could be the 3 seed. So it's a totally different field now. It's a totally different thing. So did they learn something, develop? What is the factor of playing that game in Ireland, or it's an opener? It's hard. These teams have so much transition. How do you create? What a team is playing like now might not be anything like what they're going to be in November or whatever, but certainly for this season, that's not the way you want to start if you're Florida State.
I think it's part of us having to rewire our brains on how all this is going to work, right, Dan? Of like that loss on Saturday, that wouldn't have been a death knell either, but we would have known they have absolutely no room for error. I still feel like that's probably pretty close to the case, but there is more of a hey, there is the expanded playoff, and I know that when Kirk Herbstreit had his tweet that went mega viral because of the offseason, basically patting FSU on the head and saying, that's okay, you still have a spot in the playoff. That is going to be different, right? Watching teams lose early on and not just automatically placing them somewhere because there's going to be so much left to play out.
Yeah, you're not eliminated. That they are in 17th place right now in the ACC.
Right. Yeah.
So they got a little ways to go, but yeah, you're not eliminated. You really weren't before. Lots of teams lost early in the season, and you have time to come back. But the idea of the playoff, the way we used to crown a champ, it was always just like you'd have to be a totally dominant team for the entire season. Never have a week off it. And only a few teams really had that possibility. Now you can grow into a team. You can have a hiccup. You can get some different opportunities. And in some ways, even if you're not really going to win, is this Florida State team good enough to win a national title? Probably not, because they still make a playoff. Yeah, that would be a pretty exciting thing. But it makes the conference races matter. And the problem with this early season loss, Georgia Tech's a conference team. So that is one loss in the ACC. I don't know whether they can sustain 2 and still get to like the ACC championship game. that's probably it. So they're probably walking that tightrope anyway.
Dan Wetzel with us, the College Football Inquirer podcast, Yahoo Sports with Ross and also Pat Forty. How bad do you think the notice of allegations are? Really, Connor Stalions gets a lot of the attention. How deep do you think this might be for Michigan?
Well, based on the leaked document that came out and everything we're hearing, I guess it depends on your definition of deep. It's not going to be Jim Harbaugh knew. Does not seem to be like Sharon Moore, the current coach, knew, or anybody really knew. It was more Connor and maybe some of the staffers or some of the interns operating on their own. Now there was a bit where Sharon Moore deleted his text messages with Connor Stalions. That wasn't a good idea, but they were able to retrieve them. And there doesn't seem to be any charges against Sharon Moore concerning that, so there's probably nothing in the text messages. But I think from the start of this, it's always been who knew? How high up does this go? And from the start, Michigan said didn't go high, and it doesn't appear the NCAA found otherwise. Now, whether those guys didn't know or didn't know because they didn't want to know, those might be two different questions, but you got to prove what you can prove. So I don't know what they do with this. Harbaugh's gone, a bunch, Minter's gone, their defense corps, a lot of their staff gone. Connor Stalions obviously will get a long show cause, multi-year show cause and all of that. But I don't know whether they, how do you punish? I don't know what the NCAA really can do to punish people anymore. It used to be, say, you take 10 scholarships away and that would really hurt a team. Now with NIL, if you're paying a guy $500,000 to be on your team, what do you think he cares about the $30,000 scholarship or $50,000? He becomes a walk-on. I don't know what could really happen here. So are they going to vacate the championship? I'm guessing no. Would there be a future postseason ban? I'm guessing no. I don't. There'll be a big fine. We'll see when it all comes out. But you also have the Netflix doc on Connor Stalions tomorrow. So. Big week for Connor Stalions to Michigan. The story that continues on.
Well, and he got, we've seen all the emails between him and the high school that he thought he was working for and then wasn't.
Yep.
So all of that. Dan, it is, and this is very much, kind of the big business kind of thing that college football is, because you could see this, take this to a corporate level of some big company that had something similar and nefarious going on. Sharon Moore and Jim Harbaugh and the guys could have been like, man, this Stalions is a wonderkind. But no part of my brain tells me that they didn't go, look, I don't know what he's doing. I just have to not care and accept the results, because clearly it was helping them out in some way, and he had enough of an impact where people freaked out about it.
Yeah, and that's kind of been their thing. Look, he came from the Naval Academy. He's clearly very, very bright. He was a Marine captain. He's a guy that, just absolutely poured himself into this job and spends an enormous amounts of time, work trying to figure out signals and decipher codes. And let's also be, this is football play codes. He's not figuring out where the Russian nuclear submarines are. This is not Windtalkers. He said that they hold up a sign with SpongeBob SquarePants and the Nike swoosh and
like Katy Perry.
Katy Perry, and you can figure it out pretty easily. So it's not that complicated, and so that's kind of their thing. But he was, and then the bit on Stalions would be, well, if I'm good at it, I'm not telling them that I might be cutting a corner, right? Because I'm getting attention and praise and potentially a promotion because I'm good at this. So, again, I don't know. It's up to each person to believe what's believable to them. But does not seem like the NCAA had any idea that Jim Harbaugh knew. And that was always the biggest fish, or pretty much anybody else. But we'll see. We'll still see what's in that notice of allegations, and what the NCAA will do with Michigan. They're certainly not happy with Michigan, so they may still try to really drill them, and it'll be a process. But as you guys know, this takes 90 days to respond and 60 days after that to respond to the response. And nothing's going to get settled until next off season at least.
Dan, we talked briefly about the UConn Big 12 story that started to emerge last week, and there was an update. The Big 12, I guess, had their presentation and no vote on UConn. I hate the timing of this. That's what I was saying earlier. I just like football starting, and here we are, and here's another realignment chapter potentially. So I don't love that, but I get it, I guess. Your thoughts on the Big 12 and UConn and any possible pursuit there, or does it make sense to you? Just where do you kind of see that storyline?
I don't like it. I mean, I just don't like it. I don't really like it for anybody. Would there be some good basketball games because UConn's playing some Big 12 teams? Sure. With the Big 12, but like it's one team. Like, how many times are they really in a league this big going to come and pay a visit? Mm-hmm. One every 3 or 4 years. But sure, would a UConn Baylor basketball game be great? Sure, but maybe we could just schedule that. Like,
yeah, right.
You don't have to you don't have to do all this stuff to get that done. But then you lose UConn Villanova, right? If you're just a fan, or you lose UConn whatever. To me, I don't know how much money this makes. I'm not really sure what the point is. It's a long way to have to travel. Again, you could set up some kind of scheduling deal with UConn and have them play some of your teams, but I hate it for UConn. Like, to me, this is a football decision. They're trying to save their football program and they got to find a conference, and they're risking what makes their basketball team great. That basketball team has won 6 national championships since 1999. It's the best program in the country. And all 6 of those were won when they were in the Big East, when they were in the American Athletic Conference, which has some great basketball, or had it, including Houston and stuff like that. They weren't that good. That program works when they're playing in the Northeast against other Northeast teams, and they've just won 2 straight national titles. It's exciting for those students. It's exciting for the state. It's exciting for the campus. Why risk that for a football program that isn't any good and no one really follows, or just to chase money? It's like money over. It's just all about money instead of winning national titles. Like, isn't that what you want your school to do? Isn't that, as a fan, what you would want? Not, hey, we got more revenue. Who cares? Like, I want to win. UConn wins big time. Mm-hmm. Last year's NCAA tournament wasn't really close. They pretty much blew everybody out. They have they got their coach to turn down the Los Angeles Lakers. Does he do that if he's in the Big 12 and it's a whole different? You're flying to Waco and Lubbock and Tucson and all over the place. I mean, it's just a whole different ballgame. I just hate seeing a school, and I'm sure there aren't a lot of UConn fans listening here, but I just hate seeing a school give up what makes them special to chase revenue and some pipe dream that something they're not good at will one day get okay. Like, I mean, how good could UConn football ever even get? Well, you put them in the SEC, how good would they get?
Even in 7 years, like, what's the 7 years of them joining the league, Dan, in 2031? Yeah. Like, you're telling them, hey, please get good in 7 years so that this looks good. They've never done that before in their history. And how much of their fans, for all the adrenaline rush that might be a game against Kansas or Arizona or Baylor or Kansas State or somebody like that, Iowa State, I mean, are they going to care about playing TCU and Utah and all that, or are they going to get excited about playing St. John's? I mean, that's the thing that stinks about this. And I know that rivalries, and all that doesn't matter, but especially when it comes to basketball, I think the fans will probably speak out to that.
Yeah, it's like, well, wouldn't it be awesome if Kansas comes? Yeah, absolutely. But it's awesome when Villanova, like you said, Villanova comes. They have a great rivalry with Providence College, like an hour and a half from their campus, right? Kids in that area choose between those types of schools. And when you're an outlier in that, I don't think there's a whole lot of kids that sit around and go, I'm either going to go to UConn or I'm going to go to Baylor. Probably not. They just don't really, there's no Venn diagram, or very small, or the next guy, your neighbor, or your person, I love Big East basketball because it is the last bastion of like that, just kind of pure neighborhood brawl. And it's these schools that say football doesn't matter. And UConn is that one outlet. Do have Division I football. The rest of them just play FCS, and they're happy with their basketball programs. And they win and win. They're really good at them. Like, they have really good basketball in that league. And so, I don't know. I just think I can't imagine a whole lot better when you're on a college campus than when your team wins the national championship. And they win it a lot in men's basketball, and they win it a lot in women's basketball, and even still could win it again next year. They have a very good women's basketball team come back. Why risk that and to chase money to help a football program that, I mean, that their stadium's 35 miles from their campus. It's just, there's just so many things. So just as a fan of college sports, I don't like it.
Yeah, there's so many things that have changed it. And there's no way they bring an extra dollar. And nobody that's been a part of the original Big 12 that sacrificed some of the incoming revenue the last, 2 or 3 years, they're not doing this again if they're not going to get more money. And I don't know how in the world that Big 12 or UConn can try to position that. Dan, we discussed the Florida State game to open up the weekend. You have Clemson and Georgia, Notre Dame at A&M, and there's a couple other pretty good, intriguing games. Is there one this weekend that's on your radar?
Both of those, Florida-Miami is a game where, like, whoever loses is going to be really questioned. That A&M Notre Dame game, though, is terrific. Can Notre Dame handle the heat? How good is Notre Dame's defense? How good is A&M under Mike Elko? Like, what do we got? It's a whole new era for them. Obviously, Kyle Field's going to be absolutely rocking for that. That's going to be a big time game. Georgia Clemson is a great backyard national championship caliber battle, and that means a lot too. But I'm very much looking forward to the game in College Station.
Dan, before we let you go, I know you're busy, but how was the Olympics?
It was good. It was good. Simone Biles, this woman Simone Biles from Texas, pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. Yeah, I don't know if you heard of her.
Yeah,
she's pretty good.
Once or
She's
twice.
a nice little upstart story. Yeah.
No, I followed a lot of your stuff, and obviously it was got some big TV ratings, but I knew you had been there, and that was
it was good.
Yeah, seems
it
like
was cool the way Paris used the whole city, like the beach volleyball in front of the Eiffel Tower and all the different things they did. So it was good, and I think people got really into the Olympics in a way they weren't in Tokyo and some of the more ones when everything was no fans and the pandemic and all that. So people just really into it, and it was a fun Olympics. Great basketball too. The basketball is incredible now. It's not just the U.S. games. I watched the Australia-Serbia game. It was as good as anything. You watch these games, it's like there's 5 NBA MVPs on the court at one time.
Yep. Yeah.
And they're playing like an NCAA tournament level.
What was the most offbeat thing you decided to go to? Where you're like, I've never seen this before in competition form. Let me meander over there.
I've been to a lot of Olympics. I've been very lucky. So I've seen them. I've seen a lot I've been to fencing. I've been to badminton. I've been to table tennis. Probably just the one that I made sure I went to that I didn't write about was the beach volleyball in front of the Eiffel Tower. It might have been the greatest stadium ever built. It was only for 3 weeks, but it was just, at night, you're just sitting there like, I'm watching this incredible beach volleyball. Is awesome anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chase Budinger was in the match I watched. He was the former Arizona basketball player and NBA player, and he went back to playing volleyball. He's always a great volleyball player, and he was in the match. And the stadium is full. I don't know what it's, maybe 10,000 people could fit in there, maybe more. Just this temporary stadium, and then you're just looking up at probably the most famous building on earth. And it's all lit up, and it's got these it's just what is this is incredible. This is just an incredible scene. So that might be the memory I had of just how cool it was to be in Paris at that. To the idea that they just figured out how to incorporate as much. They did a lot of the equestrian, on the grounds, the Palace of Versailles. They're just showing off at this point. They just used everything they could, and the marathon started at a building that was it got built in 1367. just the history there is just crazy. So that was probably the part about Paris that I thought was cool.
Had you been there before?
I've been to Paris before, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was the first time, but as much as you've traveled around with the Olympics and other sports as well. All right, Dan, again, the podcast, the College Football Inquirer with you and Pat and Ross, is that 3 times a week? You drop it whenever there's something you need to get to, or is it like Monday, Wednesday, Friday? When is it?
We go Sunday. We'll tape after the game, so we'll tape Sunday and then Tuesday, Thursday. So, 3 times a week.
Okay, all right.
For whatever's going on.
Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it. Dan Wetzel with us from the Yahoo Sports, and he and Ross Dellinger, Pat Forty. Yeah, I've listened to it. I've sat there when I'm working on something else and had it on speaker or my AirPods, and always fantastic because of the reporting Ross does, of course, with college football, the ins and outs. Obviously very, very good.
Yeah, and Dan's a funny guy, and they have a good show at College Football Inquirer. So for those that want to check that out, it's definitely a good listen. And I felt great to actually talk about a game that happened with Dan, and I know we inevitably, like, it's back to realignment and all these what if type of things, but to be able to talk about something that actually happened, it just, man, that feels good. I needed that.
What happened, Craig?
Florida State rolled into the season after an entire, off season of basically being the spoiled,
the
martyr, and proceeded to lose in their very first game of the season after all of that barking over the last 6 months about how they were too good for the conference that they are a part of. And not only did they lose, they lost to a team in that conference that they're too good to be a part of.
I thought Georgia Tech played really, really well.
Yeah. So starting off with kickoff, we began with.
Here's the deal: Florida State fans, and this to me is what upset me hearing from the fans. Like, do you look back at what the history is between Florida State and Georgia Tech? Georgia Tech always plays them tough. Like in 2015, beat them on a blocked field goal, for God's sakes. Don't spit in the face of history, man. It's going to come back and hit you.
That's the one thing about college football, and it's not like a major rivalry, but there are certain teams, like Kansas State, Oklahoma, there are certain teams that just create problems. And sometimes you don't even know why. They just do.
It doesn't have to make sense. It just is. So now you're playing this team that honestly has a ton of pent up, like 30 years of anger, because if you look at when Georgia Tech won their national title, Florida State then joins that league and then knocks them down a peg for a long time with Bobby Bowden. So their fans really have some resentment in there for it. So they're built up and geeked up for it. Then you look at the history of the games, and a couple times in the exchange of games, Florida State's blown them out, but most of the time they never have. And they've lost some big games to them. So I would stop short of that. And you're playing in freaking Dublin. Again, don't spit in the wind here.
Man, tough loss for the Noles over in Ireland to a good GT team. The great news is, with the new 12-team playoff, there's still plenty of opportunities to climb back into the bracket. Regroup and keep battling.
I'm gonna shoot myself.
I can't take credit for that. That was the great Kirk Herbstreit who sent out that message to Noles fans on Saturday. I'm sure he was really torn up.
I'm gonna get a water gun, and just like every time I hear, well, they still, and let's do projections, and it's going to be that way. That's what it is. It was like that with Force. So
it's like complaining about NIL,
it's
going to be there no matter what.
Or the transfer portal, right? Exactly right.
Yeah, so get used to it. The playoff talk's going to be an every week thing.
I wasn't ready for it, though. I wasn't ready for it, and then I realized I'm ready for it because that's what it should be, because that's what the 12-team playoff brings to the table. If it was a 4-team playoff, they would have no room for error, none.
Well,
and maybe
that's the interesting thing, though, is that they still don't really have a lot of room for error. Like, if you lost the second game, you are on the cusp. Like, you're not guaranteed anything at that point. So you do have more wiggle room to make it because there's 8 more spots. But you can't, even if you lost another game, like, that could be it. Yeah.
They can only lose to Memphis and Florida and not be
like, you
punished.
can't really lose to.
Why?
Because they're not conference games.
I know, but can't they play for the conference championship with 2 losses in the conference?
Yeah, but I'm saying that, like, once they lose a couple more conference games, like if they lost, say they haul off and lose to Clemson in a month and lose to Miami after that,
Well,
They're
that's
done.
3. I'm talking about if they go so-and-so and 2 in the conference, are they not going to play for the conference?
Probably.
Okay.
You basically got one more win for error.
Yeah.
That's what you like last year and all the years prior to that. Like they lose a second game, they're absolutely done.
Well, last year they didn't lose any game; they were done.
Yes, we know.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Yes, but my point being is that now you've got that one little bit, that little extra layer of wiggle room, so you could technically lose a second game and still be okay. But like now you've already used up one of your mulligans, so now you've got to go 11 weeks and go 10-1 basically is what you're going to have to do. Now, to your point, like in theory, you could have 4 losses and be in the ACC championship game, right? I mean, that's possible, but they are, starting out and making it difficult for themselves right out of the gates by going 0-1 to kick things off. And so, there's not a lot of wiggle room left, but there is more than there ever has been before, and I'm very curious about how that's sort of massaged depending on where everybody ends up at the end. That's something we have no idea of what that looks like and how a team with 2 losses but plays in the conference title game. And we don't know how all that's going to work.
If they have 2 losses, play in the conference title game and win it, they're in the playoff, but they're playing that first week.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Well, Paul, there's a lot of people that say that Georgia Tech played in Dublin, Ireland, too.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, they played way better. I mean, they made FSU play their game and not the other way around. I mean, you're not getting me not to say that. I mean, I think Florida State fans invited this.
Oh yeah.
By their outrageous ego, and had they been playing Northwestern, I would have felt a lot better about it. But Georgia Tech, a team that closed out the year really strong, and again, they never really play well against. Like I've never sat and watched them drill Georgia Tech.
Yeah, like 51-7.
Yeah, I've never really seen that. And they don't, the other thing that sucks, and I always like Georgia Tech more as a game just because it's closer, but when they split up the ACC, Georgia Tech was on the other side, so we rarely play them anymore. So then they don't even familiar.
We're not going to talk about them again.
Okay.
We are.
You asked me a question,
I
answered it.
I wanted you to vent.
Yeah,
I wanted to give you a chance to vent. I think that's what that you guys have given me that the last 7, 12, 15 years with Nebraska, except they weren't very good, where it's a disappointing start when they lose. I think we should give you that chance to vent. But there are some people who are very tired about Florida State.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
On this show, as far as listeners, we're talking about Florida State again because it was a huge story with what they're trying to do with the ACC and because of what also occurred back in December.
Well, it's also, folks, the biggest game from this past weekend. That was the biggest result from the opening weekend of college football. So, I'm FSU fatigued. We mentioned it plenty of times when some of those reports would come out and be like, oh, so nothing's changed? All right, got it, cool, move on.
Yeah.
We spent less time on a lot of it than most others in similar shoes. I totally get that. We kind of picked our spots when it came to the reporting. If you were tired of FSU, then you got your money's worth this past weekend because that was exactly what you were hoping to see, was them to have to, eat the crow after all the talk this offseason, and that's exactly what happened. So Georgia Tech, a new fan favorite, I think, for a lot of people.
Oh, I know, and they also picked up like a 4-star recruit today, another commitment. Paul, did you hear Dan Wetzel compare them and the way fans saw them lose to Texas?
I mean, I compared them to that earlier in the year. I mean, why not? I mean, why aren't they? They're the ones making noise and blaming the conference for not being good enough for them now, which is not really ever been true.
They're not really 17th. They're tied for 3rd.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech's 1-0. 15 teams are 0-0. They're 0-1.
Yeah.
All right. You good?
No, I won't be until they.
Man, if they go and lose to SMU in a couple weeks.
Oh, my God. SMU has it. When you start doing this with your left hand, there's a certain that means you're a little bit on edge.
Look, DJU is going to be boring. They have to figure that out. He's boring. He's not bad. He's not good. He just is.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
Which also, by the way, brings up how much of a badass Jordan Travis was.
Well, yes,
he was fantastic. He was a great player.
I was worried that it was going to swing on Cam Ward. Cam Ward is more like Jordan Travis than DJU is.
I agree.
And when he was down there in South Beach with Rick Ross, I was like, crap. There it goes.
Okay, we're going to seal it now. We're going to stop it until the next time we decide to talk about it.
Yeah, probably about 20. I mean, whatever brings us back around to it. I mean, it was one of the results of this weekend.
It was the biggest game of the weekend.
It was the kickstart of the college football season.
Yeah, it was. All right.
What a way to start it too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even poking the truly that's.
You're poking the bear.
No, I'm not. That was college. What else would you have wanted? A game coming down to the very end of the.
Well,
coming down
in
to
a really
kick,
well played game.
in an entertaining back and forth game that was close, and I mean that's. I just feel like I was walking through the desert and had like a big glass of water after watching that. Truly, because we've had all these months of talking about this and that, and that's all great and fine. But like I've always say, I want to watch the college football part of this more than talk about it, and so to be able to watch it for the first time in months, it just quenched my thirst, man. It was so beautiful.
Dundee's Craig is loving this. Pluto 2363, FSU's going to lose others.
I'm telling you, that SMU
by the
game.
Way, DJU had that really gutsy tying drive, which I thought might have been his moment.
Big fourth down conversions, yeah.
But do it again. The problem is he does it one play,
he couldn't
and then
do it
the next
again.
play he doesn't. So,
No
do it
time
again.
left. No, I get it.
Like,
but he couldn't do it again when there was no time left on the clock.
But, I'm saying SMU, they got Memphis in a couple weeks.
No, Metal is going to, go nuts. He heard you say that.
Yeah, they got to be careful with these next couple weeks.
What would have been a worse loss? It would have been
Memphis,
SMU. Yeah,
or SMU.
Yeah,
more
SMU.
than Georgia Tech,
because they were 28-point
favorites. What might be? Let's get there.
Which one would have been more damaging to
Any of them are.
Here's the thing:
they have no room for even in the court of public opinion. They're the shitheels of the world now. So because of that, any time that they lose, people are gonna dance on their grave.
Okay.
You're definitely just trolling at this point with those questions because
I was asking about SMU too.
No, you're asking about games that are going to happen though. What would be worse? Well, we'll find out in a couple weeks if they lose to them because they're going to play Memphis in a couple weeks, and then they're going to play they're going to play SMU a couple weeks after that. So there's no what would be. We might be talking about what was. I mean, so that's the thing. We can get there. We can cross that bridge when we get there because it's coming.
I'm ready for a crash. I mean.
Oh, it's already over for. He's already sorry.
I'm ready emotionally, however it goes.
No 11-1. I mean,
I didn't think they're going to go 11-1 anyway.
All right, let me ask you this. Now, after watching them play, and we have Colt around the corner, what do you think they're going to do? 9-3 regular season?
I think their defensive line will play better down
What's
the stretch.
their record?
So I think 9-3.
Okay, well,
I mean, I thought 10-2, 9-3 anyway. I mean, that's what I thought all the time. But Garrett, what'd I say?
Yeah, about
10-2, 9-3. That's
Retired stockbroker. I bet the Dragon and Paul do not get together outside of the show. Well, we all kind of go in our own directions, but it's not like they don't like each other. No.
Yeah, I don't know why you're getting that from this. I mean, I don't think I'm poking as much. I'm just having fun with it. But yeah, we're totally fine in that regard.
Yeah.
All right. When we come back, Colt Barber. The start of the season, the depth chart released. Everybody did that today. A lot more college football for us to get to. We'll also dig into the Big 12 as they, of course, start to have games played this week. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club, Mike Mulsel, the general manager, ready to make your weekends unforgettable? Join them, the ultimate Baylor Club game, day, and weekend experience. Kick off your Friday nights with Friday Night Live. Enjoy live music, delicious food, great company. Get pumped up for the game. For example, on Friday, you can do that, and then they play on Saturday evening against Tarleton. Live music, again, delicious food. The menu, the chefs, and what they cook and put together is always spectacular. Then get ready for the game day. Knox Hall Tailgate. Feast mouth-watering food. Play tailgate games, soak up the pregame excitement. Fellow fans, you have a chance, and then there's even a brunch, a bear brunch on Sunday the next day. What does the Baylor Club bring to you? Amenities, peace and quiet, getting to know people, networking, spectacular views of the Brazos River, McLean Stadium, the pavilion, the Foster Pavilion, and everything else in between. And, of course, yes, an unforgettable palate experience, too. Mike Mulsel, the general manager, joined today at the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford. Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Hey, by the way, welcome to Fabian Ronsch. I hope I said that name right. From Germany, watching us on 365 Sports, saying that there's a huge fan base of Florida State fans, among many others, that are Notre Dame, of course, in the European parts of where he is. I'm from Dusseldorf in Western Germany. We're now in studio with Colt Barber. He's the guy with all the Baylor paraphernalia on between Craig and Paul. David Smoak, 365 Sports, and Colt is with us. He was at the Dave Aranda press conference. I'm just being really honest. Mm-hmm. I didn't learn anything from anything he said today. It's not like nothing was there. What did he say that maybe scratched an itch you had?
You know, I think listening to him speak, he's the same guy, but every time he talks, it's something he's saying different. And I think him coming out and saying last year's team didn't have any edge, we all saw it, but for him to admit that, I was really surprised in a lot of ways, and because we haven't heard him say that directly. So I hope he's right. I think that if you put faith in what he's saying, that this team has edge, that you're excited for that, because this team's going to have edge to outperform what they did last year.
Colt, the depth chart's out too, and there's a lot of ors on it. Running back is basically everybody but, which is what they should have said instead of or. Everybody but one guy. Yeah. So work harder, dude. But what jumped out at you about this depth chart?
Yeah, I think the inclusion of Bryson Washington on this was really interesting because you have 3 guys in Dawson Pendergrass, Richard Reese, Dominic Richardson, who all played a lot last year. And then you want Bryson Washington to be good, and you expect him maybe eventually is, but for him to be included there, they could have easily left him off. So I think that's an indicator of what they think of him. Maybe he doesn't start. I wouldn't expect him to, but looking in this first game, maybe he's a guy that comes in a new offensive scheme. He's the one that pops, especially if Dom Richardson was out in fall camp a little bit with an injury. Maybe he's the kind of the power back, the one that can do everything more than Dawson and Richard are. But yeah, I think that would be the one that I would be most intrigued by of that group because, I mean, we know what he did in high school, winning some state championships. He's a big running back. You see him physically, and he looks the part. If he's the one that pops, I mean, that's great news for this offense.
Yeah, they just need guys to pop in general, don't they? I feel like that's what was missing a lot of times last year was I get inexperience or coaching or whatever, but at some point the guys just have to go make plays. And I feel like that was what eventually under Rule guys started to kind of learn that, like just go make a play and then it gets contagious. And they didn't have any of that really last year.
Yeah, I think Dawson did a little bit at running back. But outside of that, like it wasn't all the time. And I think there's enough young talent on this team that some guys are going to do it. There's enough transfers that someone's going to do it. But for a team to become a good team or an average team, you got to have playmakers, and they've got to find them somewhere. And I think you can point back to the offensive line and say the offensive line struggled, and that eliminated a lot of things. But now you look at every single level. I mean, truthfully, at quarterback with DQ, Finn's, his legs, the running back position, the tight end position with Michael Trigg, the receiver. I mean, they have talent to go make plays. Someone just has to do it for this team to take the next step.
Yeah, wide receiver, like the jump that Tyquan Thornton made that one year to the next year, of course, the year that they were the best record ever. How do they know they're any good if they're practicing against people who they haven't seen much of and weren't very good themselves last year?
Yeah, I mean, you remember those conversations this time last year. Oh, offensive line's doing great. Defensive line's doing great. Well, it ended up just being both of them weren't very good. So I think that you just take that with a grain of salt. And I would encourage anybody that's listening to these press conferences, like until they start introducing preseason games, you're not going to really know anything about these teams until they hit the field. I mean, you could probably say the same thing about Florida State.
Yeah.
Like what's really is this team's DNA? You throw in the transfer portal, and everything changes. So, I mean, yeah, we don't know a lot. We don't know unless they just absolutely struggle against Tarleton State on Saturday. We probably won't know a lot after that game either.
DJ, you looked great in practices leading up to that's kind of what you're talking about there. DeQuan Finn being named the starter, I don't think that was unexpected by anybody once he was brought in. But how much of the timing of that was him getting pushed by Sawyer Robertson, and how much of DeQuan's offseason was not being able to do everything that DeQuan Finn can do? Does that make sense? Like, I don't feel like he's what we're going to see on Saturday is what he was doing the last couple months, right? So how much of that also played into this competition remaining as maybe as close as it was?
Yeah, I mean, I think in college football in general, dual threat quarterbacks are the name of the game. I mean, if you have a guy that can extend plays, that's just as good as a possession receiver who can make a play on third down. Like, just let him go make plays. So I think Sawyer's athletic enough that they could see the path to him becoming the starter because, well, he can still go make plays with his feet. But you have a guy like DQ who's running 21.9 miles per hour down the sideline, albeit against, an FCS team, but he did it. He did it on game film. But
he ran past Ohio State in a couple of plays,
he did. Yeah. And so it translates. So you can say, well, it's lesser competition, but at the same time, like, he was doing it regularly against Illinois, Ohio State. There was another Power 5, Notre Dame at one point. He had a couple of good runs. So that speed translates, and I think especially at the quarterback position, he's going to have the ball in his hands every single play. It's not like you're trying to get the ball to him. He's going to have it. Now he's got to go make plays.
Colt Barber in studio with us, 365 Sports. Today, Dave Aranda, like many coaches around the country, depth charts released, coaches talking about their upcoming game. And Paul Catalina for Colt.
Do you have concerns about the wide receiver depth? Like, the front line seems to be okay to me when you've got Katron Jackson and Ashton Hawkins and Hal Presley and guys like that. But then after that, it just seems to me that there's more questions that might be a position – outside of the obvious, an offensive line where they can't really withstand some big injuries.
Yeah, I mean, they went after two senior receivers in Ashton Hawkins and Jamal Bell. And I think the good news with Jamal is he's been around. He's not going to be this dynamic playmaker for this particular team. I think there's opportunities for him to pop. But overall, they're all seniors, the guys they're going to be putting out on the field. And then you look at the depth chart. Micah Gifford is a true sophomore. Jaden Porter is a true freshman. Jonah Burton's a walk-on. So, like, you're right. The depth's not there in terms of after the top six guys, but the good news is they have six guys. And I think at some point we'll start talking about Michael Trigg more as a receiver rather than a tight end, just because that's what he is at his core, despite being 6'4", 245. So they got to have those seniors make play and then go to the transfer portal and recruit it again because they're going to need it for next year with all these guys they're going to lose.
How drastically different do you think? Drastically different. Just how different is it with Dave Aranda running the show on defense? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, with everything that we've heard, his intensity level goes up. And I think that if, like any of us, if we're not plugged in day to day, how intense can we really be in what we're going to do? So if it's just being out on the field, being right in the middle of it, you never heard about a lack of intensity of Dave Aranda when he was at LSU or Wisconsin. So I think that just him being involved and saying, okay, here's the offense. I'm going to hire these guys to come and run it, and now I'm fully invested in the defense. I think we're going to see a noticeable difference from that. But he's also human, and he knows his job's on the line.
Right.
So I think that you combine those two things, and all the stories that we're getting out of spring, fall camp are that there is a noticeable difference, and not that he's any type of different intense, but I think you just see it more frequently now.
Did Patterson stepping away, mutually agreeing to that, whatever it was that they decided on, did that change your perspective at all on the season itself, like how the defense will look or anything big picture?
No, I think what they were going to get from Gary Patterson outside of maybe game planning, helping game plan, he gave them what they wanted in terms of like, hey, maybe this guy isn't your best player here. What I see on film, this guy is your better player.
Okay.
And that type of stuff. So I think in a long-standing season, maybe because he can give you so much help saying, here's a week ahead, I'm looking at this team. I'm watching TCU this weekend already, so I'm going to give you this feedback. So maybe he's still doing that. I mean, he showed up to practice 2 days after it.
Yeah.
So maybe there's still some of that mutual communication. You don't know what exactly is going on there, but for them to have formally announced that he's not there, I mean, you would think that he's probably not helping too much anymore.
Colt, if Baylor doesn't get to a bowl game, is Dave Aranda back? And let's say it's 5-7, but they're competitive and there's a pulse unlike most of all of last year.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's 5-7 can easily be 8-4, right? So like you look at the one possession games and how those games play out. Well, what was the reason that you didn't turn 5-7 into 8-4? And I think that's the kind of that midpoint. What are you looking at? This DQ Finn for the first 6 games of the season, just tearing it up, lighting it on fire. They beat Utah, they beat Colorado, something like that. And you start off, you're 5-1, and then he gets hurt. So like, what is the path? Everything was going right until something changed the path. And that's where I think that Dave Aranda is going to have that middle ground of, we did go 5-7, but the energy, everything was there. We were just extremely unfortunate for what happened. Outside of 5-7, if I look at 4-8, I don't see a path to him.
What about the success they've been able to have by putting some commitments together?
I think at 5-7, I think that's the leeway. I think that creates the leeway at 5-7. I think that you say 5-7, we were more competitive on the field. We have seen what you can do with NIL. We have seen the way that this staff can recruit, and that's something to build on. Because I think in a lot of ways, high-end talent on this particular team the last 2 years was lacking, and now it's being addressed through the transfer portal and high school recruiting because of NIL. Now it's there, and I think that creates the leeway that maybe that wasn't even there 9 months ago because this staff never proved that they could recruit at that level.
Have you had a chance to go by the new indoor? I mean, the new everything football complex that they've got built. I'm blanking on the
Fudge Center.
Fudge Center, yeah. I was blanking on the name. I was thinking of Simpson, and I know that wasn't right. Yeah, the Fudge Center. Have you got to take any of that in yet?
I haven't been in. I've seen the videos of it, and I was there for the press conference this morning, and sitting in the bank overlooking the practice fields. I mean, the view is just completely different. It blocks the river, but it's beautiful. And then you have the stadium over there offset. I mean, I don't think that, and I haven't been everywhere, mind you, but I don't know if there's a better setting for a football facility in the Big 12. I mean, there might be someone that has the facilities top to bottom like Baylor does, but the way that it's set is just impressive. I want to go in there and see it, but just from the outside, it's impressive.
Yeah, I saw it back when they had their spring scrimmage practice. They didn't have the game.
Oh, that's way.
And I went there today, it's still tweaking it, doing things here and there, but they've almost surrounded it like a stadium in a way, in a facility in a way. Colt, thank you, man. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Colt Barber, 365 Sports, also is on Baylor Plus, and the football season for Baylor and hundreds of schools starts this weekend. Greg?
I'll ask you one more question. What do you want to see this weekend?
Man, I mean, you don't want this game to be close. I mean, you saw what happened with Tarleton against McNeese once their quarterback went out. And, maybe that game ends up being 57 or 54-12 or something. You feel different. Like maybe this game could be competitive. FCS teams always create challenges for FBS teams, especially ones that are unsure of themselves. So if that happens, then it's obviously writing on the wall. But overall, I think that this team needs to go out and have guys win one-on-one matchups. It doesn't need to be hey, we're just going to run the ball 50 times. And, Jeff Grimes' offense worked in 2021 and really in 2022 to a great extent. But I don't want to see that with this. That's not what the DNA of this team's going to be. They need to go out there, get their playmakers the ball. They need to spread it around and make explosive plays. They have the speed to do it, and this team shouldn't. The Tarleton team should not have the capability of slowing them down. Defensively, just play sound football. I mean, how often last year and really just gashed in the front seven over and over and over. There was truthfully no prayer of stopping without a turnover. And you felt that so often. So you can't do that in this game, then you have issues. So I think that's the number one. Just go out there and do what you're supposed to do. I think Bill Connolly put out his projections, and Baylor's 22-point favorites or whatever based on his projections from ESPN. It needs to be more than that in my mind. So we'll see. I just let your playmakers make plays. Jake Spavital needs to get those guys in place, give the team confidence and hope, and we'll see where it goes from there.
All right. Thank you, man. Colt Barber, 365 Sports, SicEm365.com. Back with more. We're going to get to the list of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. We'll also today have Paul's top 5 at the bottom or at the end of the 5 o'clock hour, and this is 365 Sports.
Hey guys, Samantha here with Texas Beef House. Wanted to invite you guys out to our next upcoming auction next week, August 28th and 29th on bidonbeef.com. If you're not a member of bidonbeef.com yet, not a problem. Go to texasbeefhouse.com. Click on the big red box that says Visit Bid on Beef to get signed up today. Whenever you sign up for Bid on Beef, you get a coupon for $25 off your first auction order bought. And then if you use code 365 Sports, you're going to get another $25 off. So it's a perfect time to sign up. In this auction, we've got a variety pack of Wagyu and Angus tomahawks, fillets, New York strips, ribeyes, hamburger, sausage, garlic links, hamburger patties. So check it out, bidonbeef.com or texasbeefhouse.com. And don't forget to use the promo code 365 Sports.
At Genco, our goal is to build long-lasting relationships while providing complete financial solutions for each step of life's journey. Our members enjoy fewer fees, lower rates on loans of all types, and higher yields on a wide variety of savings options. That's just a small part of the credit union difference. Visit Genco online, on Facebook, or come by one of our 5 locations today. Apply online for membership. Genco FCU, NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union, Genco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund. Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. Some other nuggets in college football. Phil Bennett will start his every week with us at 5 o'clock on Mondays. He'll join us. Tomorrow, we've got a heck of a guest lineup, including R.J. Maryland, the wide receiver who had a monster game for SMU in their comeback win against Nevada. So, PFF, Big 12 quarterback rankings. I got to tell you, I saw this, and I didn't really look at it because I was really trying to go off the grid, which I did Thursday, Friday, and most of the weekend. And then I started getting back into kind of paying attention and never realized, like, Avery Johnson is 10 on this list. Here is the PFF Big 12 college football rankings. The good news is all of these rankings pretty much no longer matter now that we're getting into games. But I wanted to go through this with Shedeur Sanders and Noah Fafita at 1 and 2. Garrett Green getting a lot of love. Daniels, KJ. It really goes to show you there's some really good quarterbacks, but Avery Johnson not getting much respect here at all.
Avery Johnson behind Alan Bowman and Donovan Smith and Rocco Becht is ridiculous. Ridiculous. I mean, he's better than all those guys. Now, if you want to split hairs about Shedeur and Noah Fafita's, credentials when it comes to it, but no. Cam Rising is a little too low in my opinion too. I would put him above KJ Jefferson just based on the fact that he's won a lot more than KJ Jefferson. But PFF does things that are kind of based on the draft more than anything else, which is why I'm surprised that Alan Bowman's so high, because Alan Bowman's not going to the NFL. If Alan Bowman was going to the NFL at 38 years old, he'd be in the NFL right now. So that's why it's weird for me to see this.
Yeah, the PFF thing, I know that they can sometimes do things a little bit differently. That's why I don't always just treat it like gospel. So, you're going to agree and disagree with certain things, and this is something I definitely disagree with on some of the points that y'all mentioned when it comes to this list. I don't get a couple of the placements. I think it's an interesting argument to be had at the very top about, how you would order, let's say, those top 4 guys or top 3 guys or even the top 2 guys on that list. I mean, if you wanted to have a full-blown argument about Sanders and Fafita, you could do that. If you want to throw Garrett Green in there, I think that'd be interesting. If you want to throw, Jalen Daniels into that mix, assuming full health, that'd be interesting. Hopefully those guys are all fully healthy all season long, and a conference that's seemingly got a pretty good quarterback lineup could really, flex its full muscle. So, yeah, I mean, that's exciting just to see some of those names at the top. And then I think going 1 through 16, it's not hit on every single category, but there's some other guys like a Baron Morton, who the hell knows how good he might be this year. I mean, DeQuan Finn, who the hell knows? Josh Hoover, who the hell knows? Donovan Smith, who the hell knows? Alan Bowman, who the hell knows? All those guys could be way better than they were last year for all we know. Or DeQuan Finn's as good, just translates it to the Big 12 level, and he could be one of the upper-tier quarterbacks in the league. So, that's the thing about making all these lists is, and even whatever information you use, somebody's got to be 16. Somebody's got to be 12. You can't have everybody satisfied with it, but I do think there's a really interesting conversation at the top. I think Avery Johnson at 10 is just – it's just silly. I think it's silly that he's that low based on what we've seen, even though others we've seen more of. And beyond that, it is what it is. You can kind of just – I don't think there's really an exact science when you get to, the bottom part of this, when you're Jake Retzlaff, he's not even the starter necessarily. It might be Gary Bohannon. Sam Levitt, like who the heck?
Well, he is last. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so it's like that bottom. I mean, but Baron Morton at 14, if I saw that, if I was him, I know I'm motivated for the season to start because I think Texas Tech fans and Baron Morton especially feel like he's way better than the third to worst quarterback in the entire 16-team Big 12. Even having Brendan Sorsby was just named the Cincinnati starter. It's interesting to look. You can go so many different ways with this, but I think it's a good year for the league in terms of the quarterbacks, especially at the top. And again, I just hope they can all flex their full muscles and we can see how electric this can get.
Of those 16, and we have Retzlaff at the end, and obviously we could put Bohannon in there. Of those 16, how many of them have not proven themselves at all?
I think that, Sam Levitt at Arizona State obviously hasn't yet. BYU, if you say Retzlaff, he hadn't won the job. So, I don't know how much Brendan Sorsby's proven himself, but he won the job, you know. But in terms of us seeing it, like, obviously he's not a guy that we've seen play at Cincinnati. I think those guys are just automatic questions because they're new. So I have questions about those new guys, but I think everybody else on this list is pretty proven. I guess it just determined. I think Josh Hoover proved himself last year. I don't know if he proved that he's going to be great, but he proved that he can do the job. And so I think everybody on this list has pretty much done that bare minimum of proving why they're the starting quarterback. And we've seen, again, I think pretty much all these guys a good bit already. Even the newcomers, it's just the Sorsby and Levitt in particular that we've seen little to nothing of in their respective spots.
So there we are with that. Again, it's just another list, and the fact that
but the Shedeur, Fafita, Garrett Green, and then whoever you want to throw into that mix, if it's a healthy Jalen Daniels or if it's a emerging Rocco Becht or Cam Rising gets his A game on because he's gotten fully healthy and is feeling it his final year. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. DeQuan Finn, like we said, Alan Bowman. I think there's a feeling that he gets a lot of disrespect, and I'll say it. I know I'm not the highest on him most of the time, so I think it's a big year for him to prove it. But I think he's already proven it. Got him to the Big 12 championship game in part last year.
He threw for 3,500 yards, 15 touchdowns. Now he threw 14 picks. That's the thing that was the issue. When he was hauling, what Tech, he had that 1 year where he was rolling. 2018, 2,700 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 picks. But he's going to throw some picks. But last year, 3,500 yards.
He's just a guy, though, that, like DJU, he just kind of is. Like, he's not great. He's not bad. He is. He's what you want. They're not winning games or losing games because of him most of the time. They're going to win different ways. He just needs to not throw as many interceptions this year because the schedule that they've got this year is a little bit harder than it was last year, given where they have to go, especially early in the season. But we've seen him do it. He got him to the Big 12 championship game. He can do it again. It's just not going to be spectacular, which is why I was
not going to do it like Avery Johnson is going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like Avery Johnson's going to get style points. Like he's going to have a lot of style points. Yeah.
Garrett Green.
Yeah, those guys are going to do that. If this is Olympic diving, he's just kind of...
He's not going to get that 35-yard clutch fourth down run that keeps a drive alive.
No, he's not. If it was diving, if it was diving, he's not going to make a big splash, but he didn't do 6 flips on the way in.
Well, if he dives, it might be a big splash. He's a big man. That's a big dude. I just started looking. So, again, that list came out, and I was like, okay. Shedeur, Fafita, Green. And then I started going, damn, this is some pretty deep. I think.
Avery Johnson at 10 is crazy. Yeah. I don't care what I don't care what numbers they put into their little computer there. That's I don't know how you explain that one.
West Virginia this weekend is hosting Penn State. That's a game that I didn't bring up with Dan Wetzel. Man, would that not be awesome? Fox, I think, is going to broadcast that game. It's the game. They're going to have the game day Fox, the big noon, whatever.
It's a big noon kickoff.
Yeah, I always get that one mixed up.
There's 2 of them. There's college game day and there's big noon kickoff.
Yeah,
it's about to be
big noon game day.
It's about to be Paul Catalina sues their ass because Urban Meyer and Mark Ingram and Rob Stone have started a podcast called The Triple Option.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
Did you trademark it?
Trademark
Oh, I'm working on it.
No.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Can you sue them if you don't have the trademark?
Well, I came first, so I've got people in the stable working on this right now.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that that was the case. It's like when Unnecessary Roughness started, and
and there's one now.
started to try to. The Barstool tried to start suing people that had the name prior to them, and it didn't work out in every case because I know I was on a show that was Unnecessary Roughness well before Barstool started that show.
13.
But they tried to throw their weight around, which no disrespect, they're doing their thing, but like that was one of those cases where it's like trying to be the bully, and I was glad to hear that did not result in the way that they wanted it to, where they basically just stomped out everybody else. But yeah, that happens. I mean, there's only so many names, I suppose. But yeah, hopefully you're able to do something with that.
Yeah, you need to go do that. We need to trademark 365 Sports too.
It pisses me off, quite frankly, that you mentioned the part about Wetzel, because I had it in my head too, and I think then I'm like, well, damn, I asked about the Olympics. I should have asked about West Virginia.
This is a huge game. This is Neil Brown.
There's no thinking. It's absolutely a huge
Neil
game.
Brown. This is a big-time college football weekend. We got the Fox Big Noon game. The crew's going to be here. McAfee's going to be here. A lot going on. The spotlight is on Morgantown, and I fully expect our fans and our community to really blossom under the bright lights.
This is a game of the week in the Big 12, and it's arguably the game of the week in the entire country. I mean, depending on what seat you're sitting in. And it's a massive opportunity for West Virginia, first and foremost, and for Neil Brown. And that's really all that matters most, because I don't want to do the conference pride thing routine all the time, all year long. I just don't want to do it. But it is, for the Big 12, it is a massive game for them as well, for trying to change the narrative. How do you change the narrative? What have I said all year long? And every time we've come into an argument or a discussion like this, is it's not changing the narrative by adding UConn freaking basketball. It's not changing the narrative by adding four corners or adding anybody for that matter. It's by going and beating teams that have bigger brand names and bigger clout than you do. And this is certainly one of those cases where West Virginia's got a lot of history and a lot of success, but to go and beat one of the better teams out of the Big Ten, highly ranked team, very well respected, would be a huge deal. And to do it at home would be in front of what's going to be obviously an insane crowd, would be the cherry on top of that. So, yeah, this is a big game for Neil Brown and the Mountaineers. It's a big game for the Big 12, though, too. It is. These are the types of games you have to win to start to try and at least change the narrative for this year a little bit. That's how you do it, is by going and winning games. So here's a golden opportunity for the Ears to go and do that.
Well, and look, West Virginia loses the game, then it's just going to play into the narrative of, oh, Penn State is in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is better than the Big 12. Yeah. If Penn State loses the game, it's going to be like, oh, shucks. Oh, the upstart Mountaineers beat them, and it'll pay off more for West Virginia and hurt less for Penn State. You know, it just because Penn State will have, you know, carte blanche to roll through the rest of their schedule, you know, without people questioning them too much.
Hey,
well, I mean, expanded playoff means you can lose this game, and again, it's one of those things where it doesn't hurt as bad either. So you're not like dwelling on, oh my God, Penn State lost. Now what do they have to do to stay alive the rest of the season? There will still be that, but it will be to a slightly lesser degree than normal. And so, yeah, I think more of the shine would go towards West Virginia rather than on Penn State for losing, I think is what you're trying to say. Yeah.
Paul, when do you want to put the link up?
I can put it up right now.
All right, so here is the college football pick'em link. You can pick it. You have to pick 10 games. We'll have it all spit back out to me by the end of the weekend. 10 games. There'll be tiebreakers, etc. The winner each week gets $100 gift card that Texas Beef House has, thanks to Kim Coulter contacting Samantha Duvall. We will do this for the entire football season. The winner gets a $100 gift card where you can call them up and make an order, and we'll have more details on that. But that link now is up. It will be active until any games on Thursday or Friday. I think you said there might be a game.
Yeah, there are. I'm trying to pick. I've gone through the season. I'm trying to pick the best ones. We'll change week to week. I'm just trying to get them set just so it looks like we have the best ones. But if there's something that changes during the season.
What do you mean? There already has been changes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, like when there are changes during the season, this game might be, you know, say I pick Kentucky and Alabama because I think it's one of the better games looking out this week in that particular week. And then, you know, one of the teams isn't as good. I'll find the better one. So all FBS games as well. So
Big Ten football. We showed you the SEC tiebreakers. The Big Ten has come out with theirs. What you cannot see is 7. no matter what 1 through 6 say, revert to Ohio State or Michigan.
But I mean that's the old Big Ten. Is it different now with
Oregon,
USC
Washington,
and Oregon and Washington?
USC and Penn State?
Yeah, I don't think you can do that as much as you used to be able to do that when it definitely felt that way at times. But, yeah, the tiebreaker stuff's interesting. I haven't seen anything from the Big 12. I'll go back to my question last week. Have they fixed theirs after last year and just all of the questions as that game started to get closer and like, oh, wait, how does this work? And, oh, God, do we have a problem on our hands? And, oh, crap. And so hopefully they've adjusted that. I haven't seen any updates on their tiebreakers, but it's like the SEC thing. I think this is one of those things for, like, the sickos is to, like, get real neat, like, into the weeds on the tiebreakers. And to me, like, with the SEC last week, it's like, man, if you've gone through head-to-head and comparative records and common opponents, like, yeah, you just flip a coin by step 7. Like, just flip a freaking coin because you've gone through 6 steps that can't get you to where you want to go. So, yeah, just flip a coin at some point. But
I get that, compare records against common opponents.
Right, that's all similar.
Here's a couple of, though, that you could word this differently. The representative will be chosen by the highest ranking by Sports Source Analytics, a team rating score metric following the regular season.
And that's why it's worth reading deep into them to see what kind of quirk there might be, and that certainly seems like one.
The representatives will be chosen by random draw among the tied teams conducted by commissioner or designee. See, that looks fishy to me. That's shady.
But again, what else are you going to do after a certain point? That's what I was saying. It's like, okay, you've done the head-to-head. You've done common opponents head-to-head. You've done conference record. You've done, like at some point, you have to go to the sports source analytic model to say, like, here's something that's different that can separate these teams. I think that's probably commonplace. I just think that.
Who runs Sports Source? Do you know?
I have no idea.
I know there's so many different analytics out there, but I'd like to know where they're a graduate of. They could always they put the fix in for that. I'm having fun with this, but at least they have it in writing now, 1 through 6. At least they have what could happen if all hell breaks loose and there's any kind of a multiple tie for whatever might be there in the end.
Yeah, I care more about that when we get to like week 8 and it's starting to show signs that like, uh-oh. Now, granted, other people need to worry about that much sooner, like those running the Big Ten, for example, but yeah, the tiebreaker stuff early in the season, that doesn't even really cross my mind much until we get knee-deep and it's too late to change anything, or you're like the Big 12 and you're like, oh, God, we could have a problem on our hands.
All right, Paul, put the link up. Also, the password is up, and you can start making your picks along the way.
Yeah, to get a username, you just need to create an account on Office Pool Stop. So once you do that, you can join the league because you'll have the login ID.
Okay, now last week there was a story about Colorado and the Denver Post and Sean Keeler, who's appeared on this show a couple of different times, and they've shut him off from being able to, or anyone answering any of his questions. He probably kept pushing the envelope a little bit. I remember the press conference a couple of weeks ago. We played part of it. I think Sean's just a typical smart-ass type columnist who no different than what Randy Galloway was to Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, and I'm not trying to compare the two, but that's what sports columnists can do for newspapers. But college football, I heard what Josh Neighbors said to you guys on Friday. Is there anyone softer than college football coaches when it comes to criticism?
Oh, gosh, no.
Dabo Swinney is not going to take calls on his weekly show.
Well, look, this is where Dabo and I line up for the first time ever. We agree. And here's the reason: there's going to be more Tyler from Spartanburgs if they continue on the path that they've been on the last 3 years. And if you can't handle that, then don't take the calls. At least he's saying it before the season. Art Briles cut off calls in the middle of a season where he got one call he didn't like and was like, nope, not doing that again.
If I ever see a bubble screen again or whatever,
gone,
right?
Yeah, out the door. So you can either be a guy like Mac Brown, who
he did it too.
Nothing. Well, look, they wound up pre-recording their show.
That's read email questions.
Read email questions. Mac thought he could take it for a little while. You can be Barry Switzer and nothing that anyone ever says to you bothers you, which back in those days, call up Barry Switzer and go, "Oh, Coach, y'all sucked against Texas last week." He would take a swig of his drink and go, "Yeah, sure did."
Yep. I think you're right. Our tackles didn't play well.
Yeah, but Bobby Bowden was great at it. Paterno was great at it because you couldn't say things to them that they cared about in that regard. But it was also a very different time.
Yeah, you didn't have people calling up trying to go viral.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. That's a great point.
I don't blame Dabo at all. I wouldn't take calls either if I was a college football head coach, and not because I'm worried about the criticism, but I just think it's a pain that I don't need once a week during the course of the football season is to have Mimu and Peepoo from Spartanburg call me up. Yeah. I think it's entertaining for fans who enjoy that kind of thing, but for me, I was a huge Howard Stern fan when I was younger, early 2000s, and his early days on Sirius, and I haven't listened nearly as much in the last several years, but I loved it. And the part that I actually enjoyed the least was the part that a lot of people love the most, which was the calls, right? That was the part where I kind of tuned out. I wanted to hear the interviews and the bits and things like that, and oftentimes the phone calls were bits, but I just don't enjoy that personally as much as the call-in stuff. So as a listener, I'm totally okay with that. As a football coach, that's what I would do as well. As somebody who enjoys that type of thing, I could see where you would not like this or you would even critique him for it, but I totally get it. I'm not going to knock him at all for not wanting to do that and not wanting to take calls. I mean, why should he have to? And I get it, but it's one thing to not take criticism. It's another thing to put yourself at a desk once a week and just have to listen to phone calls from your random fans that call into the show. You know what I mean? It's not 1987 or even 1999 anymore. It's a different world, and I just don't think that
Saban took calls too, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, but again, what are you going to say to him?
No. I think there's a way. That's how Texas and Craig Way and Mac Brown. They got emails and then they picked and choose. Someone probably in the SID or radio station picked out the questions. But yeah, it could be more. Yeah, the part where you both
it doesn't need to be Feinbaum.
Someone wants to be viral.
Yeah.
They're not calling to ask Dabo a question. They want to be heard on SportsCenter 3 days later.
But you do have to do that because you would hear, but I remember Mac Brown would take emails and someone would be like you could tell that Bianco or whoever is doing it was like, "Coach, have you been working out? You look good. Nice shoulders. By the way, just here's a quick question. What can we do to we had 375 yards passing next week. Do you think we can get 395 this week?" And those kind of questions. There were more softballs that they got, but it is people are trying to go viral. I don't know if Tyler from Spartanburg was trying to go viral or not, or he was just an angry kid who's 15 years old.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he necessarily
but I mean,
was, but
the thing is that, but once Tyler from Spartanburg happened, there will be a bunch of Tyler from Spartanburg clones who decide to come up and go, "Yeah, this is Dennis from Hilton Head, and I think your quarterback sucks." And then Dabo, who takes things very personally anyway, is going to lose his mind, right? And so don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it for these coaches.
All right.
Not anymore.
All right. So that Tyler and Spartanburg ruined it for everybody else.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But he got his fame. He got a lot of his fame.
By the way, already got about 10 people signed up for
I'm getting ready to do it here during the break we're about to have. When we come back, Phil Bennett, longtime college football coach, he'll join us on Mondays, and we'll discuss Penn State, West Virginia, and everything else. What happened with Florida State, with what Georgia Tech did with the running game, and to kind of slow down that game or at least shrink the game, so to speak. That and more. This is 365 Sports. Allen Samuels, new cars. Right now, you want a performance vehicle, the 707 horsepower, 2022 Dodge Charger Hellcat wide body loaded up with 4,000 miles for $75,825 is available. Sexy, sleek car, smoking hot looking car, the 2024 Dodge Durango Hellcat, 710 horsepower, save over $8,500. And also the hot deal, one of the fastest production SUVs that has ever been built. Dodge Power Days continue right now. The summer sales event continues. Make it the event at Allen Samuels. The Allen Samuels Ram TRX 1500 Crew Cab, new and used, available for immediate delivery. 2022 Ram 1500 TRX with 12,000 miles for $83,985 and the 2024, the new one, TRX, built to go anywhere, anytime, day or night. Allen Samuels with just over 450 new and used cars and SUVs, trucks too, on the lot. Ted Teague, the general manager and CEO, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Phil Bennett will join us momentarily. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak. This is 365 Sports every weekday, 3 to 6 Central. By the way, also a triple option Monday through Friday from 1 until 2 with Paul Catalina. Garrett Ross runs the mothership. This is also the first full weekend of the high school football season in Texas. I'll have my first high school football podcast coming up on Wednesday. We record it. Todd Dodge is going to join us as one of our guests. And then also that airs on Thursday, usually at around noon. We're joined by Phil Bennett now on Mondays at 5 to kind of look back and ahead. College football. Coach, thank you very much for your time. What were your thoughts about what Georgia Tech was able to do to shrink the game and pound the rock against Florida State?
Well, as you could tell, it was definitely a winning combination. I happened to run into John King and his son this summer, Daryl Dickey, who used to coach at A&M and recruited King. His daughter got married, and he told me, he said, we're going to be so much better on defense. And I think they were. And he said, if we can just play a little bit better defense, he said, I think we'll give them problems offensively. And they sure did. I mean, it was a great game plan, and they stuck with it.
Coach, have you been a part of a team where there's been a big offseason of just, like in Florida State's case, it wasn't hype. It was just a lot of complaining about what had happened the year prior and getting all caught up in that and all this big talk, and then you come right out of the gates and boom, you're handed a loss. Like, how deflating is that? Have you been a part of that scenario, or have you seen that up close and personal?
Well, we had that situation at Baylor when we won the conference in 2014, thought we were going to get in, and then we got jumped, and even though we'd beaten TCU, they moved them ahead of us.
Right.
But we ended up not getting in, and the last team in, who was Ohio State, got hot and won the thing. And then we that's as close as I had been. But one of the things and I know Mike, and I know he's a good coach. You learn in this business, less is more. When things don't fall your way, you got to move on. And if you're constantly worried about the past, then your future becomes affected. Now, I'm not saying that was the case. One of the things I can tell you is the team that had the best quarterback won the game. I see a reason why the quarterback left Clemson, why he left Oregon State. He's not as good as what Mike was playing with last year at quarterback. So, I think probably what you're saying with all the talk and mad at this person, mad at that person, could have got him in trouble.
Phil, if you had to go in and fix them for a week, I mean, obviously their defensive line got mauled too. DJU is going to be who he is. I mean, they've got to make him a little more fearless because that's what they had a year ago. But how would you fix them in a week?
Well, first of all, they got to run the ball better. They ran the ball good early, and they abandoned it. They thought they were skillful enough to take the shots. I say take the shots. The throwing the outside games, the nows, the bubbles. I think if I remember right, Paul, they had one vertical throw and they got an interference on it. They really didn't throw the ball vertically downfield against Georgia Tech. And you're not going to win many games when you're a spread offense if you don't throw the ball vertically. Now, it's obvious to me they were missing Coleman and a couple of their other receivers and their running back. They didn't create the matchup that they thought they could beat Georgia Tech with. And so what you got to do is say, this is what we're capable of. The quarterback is not a mobile guy. He's not a guy that's going to extend plays. So you better be getting the ball out of his hands, and you better be not asking him to do something he can't do. And defensively, you've got to play the run better. Missed tackles, which is common in the first game, but also fitting them better. There was too many plays. If you remember, the last play before the field goal was a 15-yard now that gave them plus 15 to kick that field goal. And that you can't have those. Art always considered those when we threw the now game out there. It's like tall sweeps, and they couldn't make the play out there. So they've got to secure that, and then they got to get going. I don't see them being the team that they were last year.
No, that's pretty obvious. Yeah. Obviously, the quarterback himself. I mean, Jordan Travis was special, and they had NFL picks on the defensive line, and of course other players too.
The transfer portal doesn't.
The receiver was phenomenal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Phil,
Coleman, I think his name was.
Yeah, Keon Coleman. The transfer portal doesn't just magically fix things. If you lose like 4 defensive linemen, you'll get 4 in the portal. Doesn't mean the defensive line's as good as it was last year, no matter where they came from. I feel like that's something we're still kind of learning in this era of college football. Is the transfer portal can do wonders, but it's not a give me everything.
That the running back from Alabama that they were all touting. He didn't have the effect that Saban thought he would have in the game. And the receiver, I just think that, as we said early in the conversation, I think Georgia Tech had a mindset, hey, this is what we have to do to win this game. And they went in, gave up a quick touchdown, never lost their composure, and just kept grinding. At halftime, a lot of people said, well, this is going to be the second half. Florida State, it never happened. They got the ball first, and if you remember, they didn't get a first down. So Florida State got the ball right back, and then they just got back in their groove. And I really liked, the coordinator at Georgia Tech had been a guy that a lot of people felt like should have got named the coordinator at Georgia. He had been an analyst at Georgia, and they really liked him. His name's Faulkner, and he's really a good football coach. And you can tell the head coach has a lot of confidence in him.
You mentioned halftime and kind of what people expected in the second half. As someone who has been in hundreds of them, how much actually can be accomplished at halftime during that time? Because it's lengthy in college. And how much are those notebooks on the sideline going to help?
I'm not sure about that. I think that visually, if you can see some things at halftime, that would help. That you could say, all right, this is the split, instead of drawing it. I'm so old, I'm back in the chalk days, Smokey. But yes, I think it would help some, but halftime adjustments are crucial. I mean, once you know what a team is trying to do, what they're doing to you, you better have some answers. And like I said, I don't think Florida State, either side of the ball, really got in a groove of what they thought they could do to stop. Haynes King, when you only have to throw the ball 12 times and you complete, I think he completed, 9 or 10 of them, but they were third down throws and they had to pack the box. So it was making it a little bit soft in the back end. And I think Georgia Tech knew that, and in their adjustment, they stayed with it.
Phil, what did you think about SMU in their comeback against Nevada?
I thought SMU, and I'm not saying this, they won't get better, but it's obvious that they came out thinking that they were going to dominate that game, and Nevada was ready to play. Now, in defense of SMU, you've got a whole new coaching staff. I had talked to a couple of people up there, and they were very concerned because they weren't sure what they were going to run defensively. They weren't sure about their portals. They weren't sure what they're going to do offense, defensively. And they ran into a buzzsaw. The quarterback didn't play well early. They didn't run the ball the first half. I think they only averaged 1.3 or 1.4 yards a carry. Nevada did exactly what they could do. They kept running it, kept powering, making a couple of third down plays. SMU lost their composure on fourth down, gave them a first down, which kept a drive, a 15-play drive. Listen, I played at Nevada. When I was at SMU, I don't know if you looked at the score there, but they beat us 12-10 when Kaepernick was a quarterback. And they didn't score a touchdown on offense, not one. They threw it. I always laughed. I text Tate Wallace during the game. I said, Tate, they just showed your flare pass getting picked for a touchdown that won the game for him. But he didn't appreciate that.
Yeah,
but, that was a play. Even, and I think SMU, it's a small stadium. I have to applaud them though. I felt like they got it together enough and found a way to game. If y'all watched it, I didn't think they were going to win the game. At no point did I think they would come back and win it.
Yeah, it was looking super dicey. And then you just had Nevada obviously made a huge mistake when they were backed up on their goal line, and that helped open the door a little bit. But, yeah, SMU got very, very lucky.
Yes, they got lucky. That's a game, and y'all will remember this. Do you remember when we played that Friday night game at ULM?
Yes, I was there.
That's what brought my attention. I can remember. I'll never forget. I had lunch with Art last Thursday, and we were rehashing all day old things. I said, "I'm still mad at you." He goes, "What are you mad about?" I said, "I'm mad about us. I told you we should have never got on that plane that Friday instead of going on Thursday. He didn't want to stay in Monroe." I said, "Too many things can happen." Well, I don't know if y'all remember it, but we go out to the airport and something's wrong with the plane. And hell, we barely get to the game. We don't eat pregame, and it was helter-skelter, and it was Duck Dynasty Day for them, and they were drunk, and they were ready to party. and they were good. They had some good players.
Yep, they were. That was a dicey. Now, that was dicey. That game was.
Hell yeah.
I mean,
that's what I felt like that SMU might have ran into.
Let me ask you this. As a head coach, there's pressure. More now maybe than ever before, but there's pressure 50, 70, 80 years ago. In reference to someone like a Ryan Day at Ohio State who's got this incredible, talented team, or someone like Dave Aranda at Baylor who needs to win, other than the obvious pressure of being a head coach, can the legitimate heat of your future and job affect how you coach on game day?
Oh, absolutely. We're human. Yeah. Smokey. You know that. Yeah. Now, Ryan Day, I can tell you right now, all they want to talk about is his $20 million season. It's a $20 million payroll. If he doesn't win the Big Ten in the playoffs and win it, it's not going to be a good season for him. And that is pressure, a different kind of pressure. Dave Aranda's pressure is, hey, they started off good. He at 21, they won the league, and then it's been in a decline since then. Can he restart it? His restart will be, if they could go 7-5, in my opinion, from what I saw a year ago, that would be a really successful season for him.
Coach, really big game coming up this weekend, Texas A&M and Notre Dame. It's huge, obviously, for a lot of reasons. And Mike Elko getting to debut in grand fashion. Know you're very well connected down there. What's just kind of the feeling around College Station about this team and about this game coming up?
There's a lot of excitement. A lot has been made about Elko being a defensive coach. Colin Klein is running the offense. I think that he has a lot of Bill Snyderism, which, he creates holes. He creates things on offense that are O-line friendly. They struggled a little bit on the O-line here. Defensively, they feel like they're loaded. Now, you look at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame, statistically, defensively, is supposed to be really, really good. They've got Riley Leonard. I think it's got the makings of a big-time game. It's going to be interesting if A&M, their quarterback, Weigman, he's been, at times he's been very effective, struggle staying healthy, and at times he hadn't been effective. They lost their number one back in Reuben Owens, kid from El Campo, so they got other kids. So it's going to be a heck of a matchup. I know this. There's going to be 112,000 people there, and it will be one of the biggest games I think A&M in the last 30 or 40 years has played opening day. So it's got a chance to really be a good one.
Well, yeah, there's going to be 100,000 plus night game, 6:30, although it's not night yet, but that place. What was it like to coach in that environment? What was it like to play in that environment?
I just had Kurt Bowles and Brent Zerman call me last week, and they said, we think you would be a great guy to talk about the A&M Texas series. And he said, because you both played and you coached in that series. And I was telling him about, playing at Kyle Field. And in 1975, we played Texas. And, Dave, you can remember this. We had just been a co-ed school for a couple of years. So they had pretty much dominated the series. I was lucky. We split my 4 years in college. We split with Texas. And their players used to always tell us, "Your fans." He said, "We have good fans," but I think it was probably because of the closeness of the fans. But A&M fans are loud. They're into the game. They always make fun of the Yale leaders, but there's not much. I've been fortunate enough to coach at almost every major stadium in the country, and I don't think it gets much better than this. And I think that the fans stay in the game. I mean, they're organized to stay in the game. And I think that Notre Dame is used to that. I don't think they'll be intimidated, but I think it will be a little bit of a different environment than, say, going to Michigan. I thought when we played Michigan, I played them, I coached against them. Michigan is a huge place, but it's not as raunchous as Kyle Field is.
Phil Bennett with us on 365 Sports during football season in the 5 o'clock hour.
Coach, my dad was class of 1965 at Texas A&M, and I remember asking when I was a kid, why do they have such organized yells? And he said, well, to keep us in the game. He's like, when he was in school in the 60s, they used to kiss on first downs, and you didn't want to see the stadium if they actually kicked a field goal. It got kind of dirty in there.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I told this guy the other day, these writers were telling me this, and I didn't really know the exact numbers, but I went to A&M 50 years ago when I started playing, and I think the last 50 years of A&M Texas, it's like 25-25. I mean, it's a dang good rivalry. A&M was quit being a long time ago being the little brother. And so what they've done now, what people here all think they've been underachievers. They've had in those 50 years, there's been 2 championships, 75 and 98. So it's been a long dry spell. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, 98, that double overtime classic against K-State. That was the Michael Bishop Kansas State team that was probably going to play for a national title.
Fumbled, and Sir Parker, they ran a flare pass.
Yep, absolutely.
The game was in St. Louis.
Kansas State fans saying, thank you for all the time you spent with K-State and also with Bill Snyder. He wanted to know, when you watch what they do with Chris Kleiman, they're steady, they win, they still kind of have that same mentality that Snyder built when you were there and then built it again. What do you see from K-State and who they are?
Well, they're very much what I think Bill did. They recruit well. They're like we were at Baylor. I thought we did this. We evaluated well and we developed. And that's what K-State does. And that's what we did at Baylor. I mean, and I think that when you play them, I watched them against North Carolina State last year in their bowl game. And they've got a quarterback. They always find a quarterback that it has ability and a skilled guy. Their young freshman quarterback last year, North Carolina State was like a top 5 defense, and he shredded them. And I think if they get the guys back, everybody healthy this year, they will be a team. Everybody's talking about in the Big 12 about Utah, Kansas. Listen, Kansas couldn't beat them on a bet right now. They're going to have to prove they can beat K-State.
All right. One of the last times we hit.
Love it. Couldn't beat them on a bet.
That's going to go viral.
It is.
That's going straight to Lawrence.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I've had a hell of a record in Lawrence, so they can get mad at me. I'm not.
Hey, we brought this up.
Don't get me wrong. Hey,
yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I've thought they've done a heck of a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Lance Leipold, what he's done. We brought this up the other day.
I'm going to tell you something. Jeff Grimes is going to be watch what I'm telling you. Jeff Grimes is going to be a superstar up there. Watch. He undeserved blame.
All right, you think with what happened, someone had to go, and Dave now has fired a lot of coordinators, and you look around the room one of these days, and you're the only one left. You think that could be happening?
Absolutely. Now, listen, I've done this much longer than him. That's the way it goes. But my thing is this. We weren't at the level we were trying to get there. I let one coach go, one. And it was for something that I kept telling him, I want you to improve on. I couldn't get it done. But it's just the fact. I had a guy, they wanted me to get rid of a coordinator. I wouldn't do it. I told him, I said, am I going to do it? And it turns out he ends up goes to TCU, won championship. But, I just think that as I said, sometimes, and Jeff knew that. Jeff's the finest man that you'll ever. He just knew it was time to go. And when you get in this business, Dave, you and I both know it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not fair, but it has to happen.
No, Mac Brown did it when he started to kind of lose a little traction. Even when they were good, they were going through a lot of guys and they weren't just because they were moving on for better opportunities. So one of the last times we had you on, we asked you about Gary Patterson, and he decided that it was a mutual, apparently, decision. Whether it was or not, I don't know, about him moving on. And then Phil, 7-10 days later, he's back on the sideline at practice. Did you ever have a chance to visit with him?
No, I didn't. But I had people that talked to him. It was just, you know what? He's got a lot of things going. I think he still wants to coach. and he's got some other opportunities that possibly will come up after the season. And I think he just felt that he needed to have his ducks in order if, say, other jobs.
Right.
You know, I've heard people say that he's definitely going to be a candidate at Arkansas. And I can see that. You know, and I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't know this, if his agent didn't tell him. He said, you know, that could be a little bit risky, and you might want to just set this year out if you plan on getting back in it. And sometimes you're guilty by association. And I'm not saying that's going to happen at all.
Right.
But you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, if he stayed the whole year, Baylor wasn't good. Well, we're not going to hire anybody from that Baylor staff, right? We can't sell that to our people, especially given the amount of money, you know, like they're going to be throwing at another football coach. Yeah, that absolutely happens. It's never fair either, because it's not an assessment of a guy's entire career.
Absolutely,
it's an assessment of the now.
Yeah. All right.
You know, you mentioned early, David.
Yep.
People, because of the pay and the amount of money they're spending, whether it's Baylor, Arkansas, it doesn't matter. If you look at A&M, they're paying a guy $77 million not to coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's making more than the head coach is here, Elko. Now, how crazy is that? How would you ever think that's right? But with that said, the urgency to win is now. And you better be good, and you better earn your money, or you're going to be gone, and they will find the money to get rid of you.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimbo Fisher. Ask Jimbo Fisher.
Mm-hmm. Phil, if you don't mind me asking, you coached a lot of places. A lot of times when you moved on, it was because you could and other people wanted you, but it's part of the business that you get fired or things change. And I'm not talking about even the transition of 2016 at Baylor, but you were at SMU, you were Oklahoma, you've been everywhere. When you leave, and if a staff changes, were there times you didn't even know where you were getting money from other places and programs when you were somewhere else? How does all that work out? Is that complicated?
Yeah, it is complicated. You know, back when I was coaching, Grant Taft was head of the coaches, and he was so good. He pushed for June to June contracts, and what that did, if you got let go in December, that gave you 6 months, you know, to have something, to find something.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, Grant Taft fought like crazy with the OCFA, with Chuck Ninus, to do that for coaches. And you know, let me tell you something. I've been fired at Pittsburgh. When I was at Pittsburgh, now I could have stayed there, but we were 8-4 and tied for the Big East championship. I mean, there's so many situations that coaching has nothing to do with it, that you're done with. You know, the situation, you know, take it Baylor. I mean, we finished 15. We're thinking 16, we might have a chance to win the national championship. And then the situation happened there. So many coaches don't have, I mean, you have zero control of your career. I mean, other than your personal, how you handle things. You know, I laugh when I went to Baylor. I wanted a contract separate from the head coach because that had become the deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it is. And I remember the assistant kept coming in to sign the contract, and I told him, I said, I'm not signing it, because one of my things that I said, I want a personal service contract. And he goes, we've never done. I said, well, they know I want it. They agreed to it, and I got it. But it does become complicated. When I left, I had 3 years on my, I think 2 or 3 years on my contract, and I hadn't done anything wrong. So yeah, it becomes complicated.
So you had 3 years or 2 years left. You left, the entire staff was gone, and in comes the Matt Rule staff. Were you paid by Baylor in one chunk, Was it overtime and then he got the
No,
job
it
at
was
Arizona
overtime.
State?
It was over. Let me tell you, that's the one thing that I appreciated about the AD. I mean, he was fair, and I went down. Of course, I went in, and we had. Listen, he inherited a bunch of butthurt coaches. It was a rough. And when I write my book, it's going to be a full chapter. I mean, he inherited a mess. He's hearing the things, and as I told him, I said, don't believe everything you hear. And I didn't know him well. I mean, we had some conflict, and then we had some agreement. And I was trying to help him keep that thing going. And then when I think I was the only one that got a Power 5 job out of that. And I had a chance. I mean, I had been offered like 3 jobs. I knew Todd, and I told him, I said, I'm going to, I didn't want the money that I was making at Baylor. I was making quite a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm going to take this much money. And I told Mac. Mac agreed. I said, Mac, I need you to write me a letter that I was not involved in. Everything was, you had to be cleared. I mean, I had to be vested in everything. And he did a great job and really, really helped me. And I greatly appreciate it and still do.
And then, but when you got paid by Arizona State, did that offset whatever Baylor owed you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Just
yes.
wanted.
It was an offset.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But I also had a deal that if I left after a year, and so we decided. I think what happened, we decided to go ahead and maybe pay everything out that first year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we did.
Okay. All right, it's here, football season. We saw the Georgia Tech win. We saw SMU find a way, and that's the bottom line. And now West Virginia, Penn State, Notre Dame, A&M, Clemson, and Georgia, and a bunch of others.
Yeah.
Golly, can't wait. Phil, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All
Phil
right.
Bennett with us on Mondays in the 5 o'clock hour. And we're going to just, go off on tangents like that. And and then we'll be able to break down even more games because more games are played this week.
Yeah, next week we got a ton. I mean, there's only 2 games with big teams in it. And then, one thing we haven't talked about, Montana State punching up a weight class and beating
New Mexico.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And New Mexico had that game. They were winning that game, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, New Mexico watch that one.
Blew all 4 tires.
Yeah, I mean, they really did. I think they were the underdogs going into that. However, it was one of those weird situations where it's Montana State coming up a level, but they were still the favorites, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like it was a huge shock. I think it was just the fact of how it twisted at the end compared to what you thought was going to happen. So, yeah, New Mexico with a big opportunity and, blue tires, like you said. So I was thoroughly entertained. There wasn't a lot of games, but I thought Florida State, Georgia Tech for a first game right out of the gates overseas, coming down to the wire and a big field goal, which you never know in college football how that's going to go. I thought that was, fun. And SMU obviously had to count their lucky stars that they were able to pull that one out on the road. Being on the road against an underdog is not an enviable place to be in, even though, you're the better team, as Phil laid out there, and as many others would probably attest. Like, you go out on the road to start the season off with, you don't know what you're getting that first game of the year. So SMU got the win. That's all that really matters. But,
right.
I thought the Montana State game, it was a really entertaining little appetizer for what's to come here at the full meal deal this weekend.
All right, one other note in college football, Cole Wisniewski, who's an All-American defensive back for North Dakota State, is out for a significant time. I remember watching him a couple of times last year, a phenomenal player, and I'm sure he was going to have a whole mouthful and bucket load with Travis Hunter coming at him from Colorado. You wonder, he's a really good player. He's out for a significant time. WDAY News making that report, the Bison All-American safety out for that game coming up against Colorado. I think it's on a Thursday night.
I'll tell you who else he was going to have to deal with, and people aren't talking about this enough because Colorado has a lot of flash. They went out and got a receiver I thought everybody should take a flyer on, and that's LeJonte Wester from FAU, who is a receptions machine. He had well over 100 catches last year.
Was he a possession guy or a slot receiver like the Wes Welkers?
Yeah, but he can do a lot of things. He's very when you got 130 receptions in 11, 12 games that he played last year, that is.
I'm glad you brought that up. Good for and they need others to be able to take all of the load or everyone like double teaming. Although it's hard even to do that with Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter is great at everything he does. He's very good at everything he does. Whatever you want to say about his skills at the other position, but Wester is like an actual full-time receiver, so you can kind of do a lot of different things with him than Travis Hunter, who you're going to have to take out for some time so he can catch his breath.
Yeah, no, he's really good. LeJontay Wester, I think that they needed to obviously get a little bit deeper and better and have a little more star power, and so I think that he helps address all of those issues. Obviously, they've got as much star power with just a couple of guys as anybody in college football does, like 1 through 100 on their roster. But I do think, LeJontay Wester addresses some of what maybe ailed them at times last year in terms of just needing other guys to step up and make plays. But, really, that their issue isn't the receivers and the offense. It's it's the offense in terms of the line and therefore the running game. The passing game's fine. Like, the passing game was fine. Like, LeJontay Wester's rolling into a situation where, he's just going to probably make them better and gives them another great weapon. But the thing that I'm kind of hung up on here is I saw the list of the rankings we were doing earlier, the Pro Football Focus and the Big 12 quarterback rankings. And if you don't agree that Shedeur Sanders is the number one guy, if you think it's Noah Fafita, I totally can see that argument. If you think it's Garrett Green, I can see that argument. If you want to say it's Avery Johnson, I can see that argument. I understand not liking Colorado, but let's not act like Shedeur sucks. Yeah. Like, I'm seeing a whole lot of that going on.
No, that's anyone saying that's an idiot.
No, and there's a lot of Shedeur, number one, no, he's got a real argument to be the best quarterback in the Big 12. It's not like Deion sunshine pumping and all. No, Shedeur's legit. Let's not get it twisted. He's not going to go high in the draft because his dad's Deion. NFL teams aren't going to draft a guy and invest in him because his father's famous.
Well, Brendan Rice was undrafted, and his dad was the greatest wide receiver ever played.
There's plenty of examples of it. So I get that that's social media, and that's why I typically have to police you because you get off track with Larry and Tatum saying something who gives a what?
Tatum Eagles.
But I'm seeing enough of the Shedeur sucks, Shedeur's overrated, and it's
man, I'll tell you what.
If you want to talk about Colorado, that's fine, but let's not pretend like Shedeur is just some garbage football player. That's not the case at all.
No, he's a phenomenal player. They've got if they have some meat on the bones, they're going to be better than most people think because most people think that they're going to be struggling to make a bowl game. I want to say one thing about Colorado because there's a lot of times.
I do want to say about Shedeur. The only reason he's the reason they lose a game if he's not in it.
No, he's not going to ever. It's not because he doesn't pass and throw the ball well. He'll occasionally make a mistake, but he can run. He can throw. He's dynamic. Every play seems to be always one more opportunity to make a throw. I saw a video. And I know it's kind of like people are on one side or the other, which is the way too many things in many ways. But Deion was in front of the team the other day, and he brought up 5 or 6 players to the front. And I didn't know quite what was going on here, but I remember when he put out a tweet about, does anyone know anything about a financial institution or whatever that we can do something with for some of our players? I don't know if it was 5, 6, 8 players, but there was a financial credit union or a bank, an investment firm that put $2,212 into 6 or 8 accounts for players on the team who had children. And Deion set that up. Yeah. And I thought that was absolutely, I just loved that.
I thought it was great. I thought it was really good. Was it 22 or was it 21-21?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah,
because
the name, 21-21. Yeah. And that's their money to help with they have a son or a daughter or, and it was so damn cool. I think it's kind of thing.
I think they did it for the kid, it's in the kid's name.
Yeah. If it was Homer Johnson, it was Homer Johnson's son, whoever. I just thought.
That's great.
Freaking great.
Yes, that's great. And anything that you can do to help your players, help their families, and just help other people, I think is fantastic. And that can kind of get lost in all of the other loud stuff. that occurs, especially surrounding him, and just all the hot takes that there are. So yeah, that's good to highlight something that is good, and there's definitely more than just that, but it does get kind of, I don't know if it's overshadowed or just just a lot of emphasis isn't placed on those types of things because it's not national news per se or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I definitely don't agree with every single thing out of Boulder, Colorado, nor do I agree with every single thing out of Waco or Fort Worth or Ames or whatever, but I'm very much looking forward to watching them this year. Really looking forward to watching Shedeur and Travis Hunter and LaJohntay Wester and all the transfers they brought in. And I'm glad that I'm not rolling into this like rooting for failure for that football team like I know a lot of people are. So we'll see if they flame out or if they sit there and throw middle fingers at everybody and play for something, like a bowl game or something. But they're definitely going to be the topic of conversation, at least early on. But they got to do a bit more than they did last year, which was one thing to be the topic of conversation the first month of the season, another thing to be the topic of conversation throughout the whole season. And they only accomplished the first month last year before it just went off the rails and nobody cared as much.
It was a phenomenal last year.
Yeah, it was.
In the month of September. Edith Royal, the wife of legendary national championship and college football Hall of Famer Darrell Royal, passed away at the age of 98 years old. That was a note. I believe Paula put that in the chat room earlier today. No, it was Callie. It's been a while, but I just happened to look for that, and she passed away at 98 years old. Let's see. Retired stockbroker. Remember that John Daly funded college funds for that fan that he hit and got struck by lightning? I don't remember that. It was a credit union. Michael DePart said, more coaches need to take his lead, helps the players and their children. Now, thank you very much for the updates from those of you in the chat room. Around the corner, Paul Catalina at his top 5. We have games this week. The Pick'em link is up. We will have numerous guests tomorrow and then every day. Sam Kahn's locked in now for Thursdays at 3:30. Max, I think, pretty much most Thursdays at 4. We'll have Taylor McCarg on Wednesdays at 4 and many others that will be a part of our show. Those are just some. Plus what we have as we add along the way each week based on who's played, who's won, who's struggling, or who's on the clock. This is 365 Sports. Ideal, MRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace, just up I-35 in the southern part of Waco, where they can find out what is creating so much problems that you don't even sleep well at night. I remember when I had a torn rotator cuff, didn't know that. I just knew that my shoulder felt like it was like a ball of taffy that would roll up. I remember my bicep was torn. Did not know that until the MRI, but I could not sleep very well. Sometimes it's like a toothache. If you push on it, it feels better than you let go and it hurts. Sometimes when you have a muscle, a ligament, something that's torn or shredded, something that's hurting, you sleep on it, it feels better, but then only for so long, then you got to turn. So if you've had that issue with whatever it is, your lower back, maybe part of your leg or something in your leg or your shoulder, your neck, Ideal MRI can find out what is causing that problem. Your doctor wants an MRI, you tell them about Ideal MRI. $497 or less every single time. And they have state-of-the-art imaging machine. It is fantastic, and they will get everything they find, all of the images in the portal for you and your doctor at idealmri.com.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
for Paul Catalina's Top 5. Brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented by Texas Beef House. Remember, use our promo code 365sports for 10% off of your order. I continue building the perfect college football team. Now, this portion is going to be the most controversial. We are into the specialists, not the specialists, the skill players, quarterbacks, running backs, and an all-purpose player. And there's a fullback on here too. I think my last three things are going to get at least a couple fan bases riled up. But let's start out with all-purpose player. Travis Hunter, Colorado. Can't go wrong with this guy. I can float him over to my defense and play cornerback. He's an excellent wide receiver, probably actually a better wide receiver than he is a cornerback. You want this dude on your team. You want him on the perfect college football team. He's the wrinkle. He can do everything. He can return kicks. There's so many things that he can do. So if you're building the perfect college football team, now listen, this is not just the best NFL drafted college football team. You'll see that in a second. But the perfect college football team, you got to have a guy like Travis Hunter who is an X factor wherever he is. Next up, fullback. Jake Schultz from Oklahoma State. This guy's a load. He's a great blocker. Look at him carrying the ball here. Heat-seeking missile in Bedlam. Ready to knock this dude over. You got to have a fullback. I don't care how much you use them, but you got to have a fullback if you want the perfect college football team. You got to have somebody who gets those nitty-gritty yards, who does the dirty things, who absolutely gets in there and mixes it up. Plus, I'm refusing to let it go. I'm old school. I wish there were more fullbacks. The best position in football. Change my mind. Running backs. Quinshon Judkins, Ohio State. This guy, in my opinion, the most complete back in the country over guys like Ollie Gordon, Taj Brooks, and others, Omarion Hampton. He is complete. He will run through you. He'll run past you. He will do all those things. And I said all that because none of the guys I mentioned are on this list after Quinshon Judkins. He is the biggest find on the offensive side of the ball for Ohio State. I would say their second biggest pickup after Caleb Downs. Him leaving Ole Miss was a shock to me because of all the money they're putting in. But with Ohio State having $20 million in the budget for this guy, or not for this guy, but $20 million in the NIL fund, not surprised to see him go there. My other running back, because he does different things. Ashton Jeanty, Boise State. This guy can return kicks. He's great catching the ball out of the backfield. I mean, great catching the ball out of the backfield. And he's a big play machine, super athletic, going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate. Boise State is a team to watch. Go deep this season and possibly get that G5 playoff spot, and due in large part to what Ashton Jeanty can do. Now, let's get to the point where I have to talk more about a position, and that's quarterback. I'm picking Jalen Daniels, a healthy Jalen Daniels at Kansas, over Carson Beck and Shadur Sanders and anybody else. And here's why. A healthy Jalen Daniels is the best quarterback in the fourth quarter in the country. By far. This dude in the fourth quarter, he can do it all. He can get you first downs running. He can get you first downs throwing. He's a problem. And you want that for the perfect college football team. Now remember, most college football teams that have won the national title don't have guys that go on to glory in the NFL at quarterback. A lot of them wind up being backups or, like Josh Heupel, a 40-pound heavier version of a head coach at Tennessee. Yes, I can make that joke because I'm also 40 pounds heavier than I was in college. So, Jalen Daniels, to me, the perfect quarterback for the perfect college football team, because healthy, he can win you games in ways you cannot imagine. And plus, if you put the team around him that I put around him, he's not going to lose much, nor is he going to get hit much, because I have built the perfect college football team. Quarterback Jalen Daniels right there. Tomorrow, we do get into the specialists. We're going to give you the best kicker, the best punter, the best punt returner, and even the best long snapper, if I can figure out who that is. This is the top 5 on 365 Sports. We're wrapping it up right now.
You cannot do the long snapper.
Oh, I'm doing the long snapper.
But at the short snappers, like field goals and extra points, don't.
Well, I mean, same guy.
No, it's not.
Quite often, it's the same guy.
All right. Let's click off the list. We got a little bit of time here before we say goodnight. You guys name to me how many teams have a stadium capacity of over 100,000.
Michigan, Ohio State.
Whoa. There's two of you on that set.
Okay.
What? I know you're grumpy.
Yeah.
But you did mention Michigan and Ohio State. Craig?
Am I just naming off one at a time?
One school, and we'll go back.
A&M.
Okay.
Texas.
All right.
Tennessee.
Yep. That's 4 or 5 of the 8.
Alabama.
Yep.
LSU.
Hey, don't come in here acting like you're.
That was what I was going to say.
You know, I wasn't quite sure they were over
He was
100, but
speaking
they
for
are.
me.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's
Penn-
one
Penn
more.
State.
Penn State. Penn State's the second largest, in fact, behind Michigan. Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Tennessee, Texas, LSU, Alabama, and Texas A&M. Now, that's not the order. Those are all 100,000. The largest is Michigan. Penn State never gets enough credit, but they're second largest. Third largest.
I think they get credit because we were talking about the video game, which has just totally petered out as far as discussion goes.
It really has. Yep.
Well, I think the game came out, and then all the hardcores that were going to be the guys playing all the time, don't love it the same as when it was not released yet. But there's still a lot of content out there. Don't get me wrong; it's just not as much of a talking point. But when it did come out with all those rankings to get people talking about it successfully, the stadium one was on there, and I remember talking about Penn State and how we actually asked our guest about it. I don't remember who that was, and they were talking. I mean, it's very well known as a great atmosphere, but yeah, when you're talking biggest stadiums, it doesn't roll right off the tongue like a lot of the others, like A&M or Michigan, normally do right away. So yeah, it gets maybe a little bit under the radar there.
That's exactly right. Of all of those schools, the 8 that have a stadium capacity of 100,000 and more, in order, it's Michigan and Penn State, then Ohio State, A&M, then LSU, Tennessee, Alabama, and Texas. So those are the 8 in order. Of all of those 8 that have 100,000 or more stadium capacity, how many of them do you feel like averaged more per game than their actual capacity last year? This is last year.
3.
All right, I don't know how many. I'm just going to. Okay. Michigan did. Penn State did. Ohio State did. Tennessee was exactly the same, that's kind of hard to believe. Texas did. LSU did not, and neither did Alabama or A&M.
Oh, gee, I wonder. Well, Alabama went to the playoffs, so they had a good season. They're also not known as being the greatest fans in the world. But like, if you hear like criticism of the Alabama fan base, like as far as being like the hardcore like crazy fans, they're not that. Like Saban would comment, like they have 100,000 people, but it's not the craziest environment in the world. They were still very good. Long way of me saying, like the teams you mentioned that went up are teams that won pretty big last year.
Yeah, no, Michigan,
now Alabama did win big, but they're used to winning big every single year. So I don't think anything was all that different for them a year ago. But that's the one place that has the 100,000 plus that even Saban criticized when he was the head coach from time to time, as far as like the craziest atmosphere for that many people. I don't know if anybody else would be below them of those teams that you mentioned. But, yeah, I mean, the teams who had a lot of success last year had attendance rise. Surprise, surprise. And the ones that didn't.
Three of the ones that dip, LSU had a down for them.
Yep.
A&M had a really disappointing year, and Alabama was Alabama. They're spoiled. Okay, so there's 8 with 100,000 or more in their stadium capacity. How many schools have 90 to 99,000 stadium capacity?
2.
Georgia. And that's it.
Oh, just Georgia.
Just Georgia.
No, it's not true.
Is Oklahoma expanded?
No. UCLA technically has
90,000
plus.
Yeah, no, you're right. Let me see where they are. Yeah, see, it says here stadium capacity 54,000. But no, you're right. Georgia has 92,000.
They're the only, like, if you count that UCLA one, that's the only other one that would be there with Georgia as far as 90,000 plus, but not 100,000 plus. Yeah, it's just those two.
All right, I forgot. Yeah, at the Rose Bowl, right?
And I wonder, and I don't know
Is
Georgia's
it the Rose Bowl or Memorial Stadium? is where they play.
The Coliseum?
Memorial Coliseum, yeah.
I wonder with Georgia, I don't know their capacity and all that for
92.
growth. No, I'm saying for growth.
Okay.
If they would be the next to join the 100 club. But that's a lot. That's
a
still
big jump.
8,000 seats, so I don't know if that would even be feasible, which is why I said I don't know what their capacity is. But they're the closest to being able to join that club. Everybody else would have to add like 10,000 plus, and we know UCLA is not in need of a bigger setup than they already have. So, yeah, everybody else would have to go 10,000 plus seats to get to that 100, so that's probably not happening anytime soon.
Florida, 88. Auburn, 87. Nebraska, 87. Clemson, 81. And then the 80,000 or so, Notre Dame and Oklahoma are right at that 80,000 or so capacity. Just a couple of nuggets on the stadium sizes. And, of course, a lot of those teams have won a lot. A&M, out of all of those schools, they're the ones that have been the longest drought since their national title and even conference title in 1998, although Nebraska's starting to have a pretty long drought too since they won the national title in 1997.
Yeah, but they won some conference titles after that.
Not a lot.
No, but
they won it in 99.
Yeah. 01.
And
right?
No, they lost to Colorado. Remember, Colorado beat Texas. They have not won a conference title since they had a 12-1 team in 99.
Okay.
And that was a team.
So only 1 year.
Yeah. No, yeah, but they won the Natty in 93,
but as far
94,
as conference
97.
title, yeah.
Florida State should consult with them on bad-mouthing where you were and where it was pretty good, and then rolling off and
94, 95, and 97.
Yes.
94, 95, and 97. It rings in my ears. It's the only thing I have left to grab onto. Largest school capacity, then we go and say goodnight. Craig?
Largest school capacity?
Largest stadium capacity. And I don't know about the improvements at Texas Tech and where they are. This is from last year. Because Tech, where's Kim Colton when we need him? Is he in the corner, timeout corner? What is Texas Tech's capacity going to be? I don't know. But Texas Tech last year was 60,000 plus. Iowa State, 61,500. I've been to that one. It's very, very... It'll surprise you a little bit. BYU's even larger than that.
So you're doing Big 12, I'm guessing, here?
Yeah, 63-4 is the largest one there. Okay. Now, again,
Which is
Texas Tech.
BYU?
BYU, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know with Techs. I haven't looked deep in their details, but a lot of that doesn't seem like it's for seating. It's for, like, offices and suites. And I guess suites and seating go hand in hand. But I don't think, I think a lot of that project is not so much like a bunch of seats. It's, other stuff that's, like I said, suites plays into that. But, I don't think they're going like 10,000 extra fans in the stands. But I don't know. There's a thing called Google I've heard of that we could probably figure that out.
60,000, but they're expanding it. And I saw a video. Joey McGuire put up a video, and my God, it is stunning how pretty it is. Speaking of which, when we said at the Colt, what Baylor's done around their practice facility and the Fudge, the Fudge Center is unbelievable what they have. All right, thank you, Garrett Ross. Emery Winter is dialing up 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 tonight on the CW. Paul Catalina back tomorrow, triple option at 1 if he doesn't lose his name.
No, the one true triple option. That's what we are.
Better trademark it. This is 365 Sports. Thanks to all of our incredible sponsors as we head straight into, of course, the football season. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak. Thanks to Levi Caraway. Saw him today at the media session. Jack McKenzie, Colt Barber. Good night, 365 Sports.